Greetings, my fellow Americans. This is your President Samuel Ronan speaking, and today is Taco Tuesday. So, as we always do, as we always say at the start of a new week of our streams, is what an absolute shit show the past few days have been. We literally have reports that ICE has been targeting Chicago in significantly more ways than one. Obviously, we covered the apartment building, but now we know for a fact that ICE is going into Chicago and demanding to see people's papers. Now, people are saying, well, we can't call ICE the Nazis because, you know, the Nazis went after Jews and the Nazis did this and that and the other thing. But one of the most quintessential things that makes a Nazi in every form and fashion that we've ever seen them depicted is when they walk up to somebody and say, "Zeig mir deine Papieren," which is, of course, German for "show me your papers." So we are at that level of fascism in America. And quite frankly, it chills me to the core that that is, in fact, where we're at. I've said before that I served my country, that I'm a veteran, that I enlisted to serve my country because I thought in being in the military, I would, in fact, be doing good things for my country. And yet, time and time again has proven, ever since I got into active duty, and even the time that I've left, things have only gotten steadily worse for Americans generally, and for people of color, worse. And so, when we see our own city, our own citizens being targeted and harassed in this manner, in a way that is very indicative, very historical of being fascist, of not only being fascist, but Nazi fascism, is deeply disturbing to me on an individual level, but also as an American. We are literally doing things in America that we saw depicted in movies about World War II and the Nazis rounding up Jewish people from communities with impunity. And just as then we said, well, why did the Germans not speak up? Why didn't they speak out? Why didn't they do or say anything? And, well, the proof is around you. Propaganda is a very dangerous and insidious thing. When especially the internet becomes involved and you can completely manufacture different realities based on an algorithm, what do you think people are going to experience? The real, true reality that we see, or the reality that they are being forced in front of you? So, when I say what we see, aren't we also being fed a reality? Sure, we are. We 100%. The left is being fed a reality just as much as the right is being fed a reality. But that doesn't change what is, in fact, happening. Just merely the presentation and who's doing the presenting. So when I say we are seeing Nazi-style stop and give me your papers, shakedowns, and militarization of law enforcement, mobilizing of the guard, so on and so forth, like that, those are all undeniable facts. And when this administration tries to claim that they aren't racially profiling, when they literally got the Supreme Court to pass a judgment allowing them to racially profile, it just makes you wonder, how are people so quick to forget what has been such recent history? And it goes back to manufacturing reality. And, of course, the problem with propaganda. If you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes truth, right? Well, there's an actual science behind that. And the science states if you lie for 60 days straight, a regular person, will have an extremely difficult time differentiating the lie from fact, even if presented with undeniable proof that that lie is in fact a lie. So that's what we're dealing with, folks. Welcome to the stream, Anna. We're gonna, I guess, jump right into it. I don't know if we... wait, what happened to the... Why is there always something? I don't remember getting rid of this. There's the alerts box. Hold on. All right. I guess I have to add the chat again because God forbid something just works the first time. And I don't even know how to save because this is OBS from Steam. I don't know that you can save. Well, in either case, hello. And we're going to get started with our stream. Thank you all for joining us. Let's start off strong. Chicago mayor says ICE tear-gassed our police. Now, we all know that this is not a pro-police platform or channel or creator, right? But it's crazy when you read a headline that says police got tear-gassed by federal police. Like, that's nuts. Okay, we're dealing with Nazi-style fascism, but on steroids, because now the SS is attacking the Gestapo on top of it. Like, that's really fucked up. So, as much as my heart breaks for the Chicago PD, who got tear-gassed by ICE, I'm fairly certain that same PD had tear-gassed at least one or two protests in their time. So, my sympathy is sarcastic at best. So let's kick it off from right there. Is it gonna load? All right, here we go.
Protesters confronted federal immigration agents in Brighton Park on Saturday.
Oh shit, they really did get gassed. That's
with pepper balls and more repression. CPD responded to attempt to de-escalate the situation, and ICE tear-gassed our police officers.
Damn. See, I thought that was rhetoric, to be honest. I genuinely thought that this was hyperbole. Like, that cops happened to be in the area and not having gas masks when ICE was doing whatever ICE does. But the fact that they really turned the pepper ball guns on the cops and was like, fuck you. Damn. So, I guess that begs the question, what is ICE trying to do if they're attacking police officers? And what are police officers doing if instead of arresting ICE agents are fleeing and trying to avoid the gas? Well, aside from the fact that using tear gas in general is a war crime because, as we can see, it's a chemical, which is disallowed in warfare. Chemical weapons are not allowed, especially against civilian populations, right? And technically, police are still civilians. Granted, so are federal agents. The only people who aren't civilians are the military. So you have a civilian police force gassing another civilian police force, which is still a war crime. So my question becomes, if we can't even count on police arresting ICE agents who are acting out of line and breaking their own laws, then here, okay, I have an answer. I'm saying that very facetiously. What I'm not understanding is why these cops aren't engaging with ICE agents, right? Like, I don't understand why that wouldn't be, like, I'm surprised they didn't immediately clash. Like, why the fuck did you just tear gas me? And then, like, they got tasers, they got their own pepper spray, and then arrest the ICE agent. You just fired upon a police officer, right? So what? Is it the fact that police officers are afraid of going after federal agents because federal agents are a higher jurisdiction? Is that what it is? So if you have a higher jurisdiction terrorizing people and the lower jurisdiction of police, then wouldn't that still be a crime within the chain of command? Well, that's military law, folks. If you are attacking your own unit, that's also against the law of armed conflict. So, like, I'm not understanding what's happening here. Like, why they're not reacting. So, what I'm going to say, the cops should arrest those fuckers. We would get arrested for doing to the cops what ICE did. Right. No, absolutely. And that's kind of what I'm suggesting we do, though. If the police are unwilling to arrest ICE, and ICE is willing to fire on police, then very clearly they are acting as a rogue entity, right? I mean, this is not the rule of law in any sense of the imagination. Well, Chicagoans have been terrorizing ICE since ICE arrived, and that's great. What they have been doing has been denying them hotels, lodging, food, services, everything. Anything and everything under the sun that Chicagoans can deny ICE, they have been. And that's another thing that I am suggesting. As a citizen, deny ICE. If they demand to see your papers, refuse. Travel in large groups. In fact, if you see ICE trying to stop people for their papers, interfere. Obviously, the more white you are, the better your chances are of getting out of that situation. But that's my point. That's what I am going to suggest we do, is interfere with ICE as much as possible, because what they are doing is unlawful. It is illegal. It is unconscionable. It is unethical. It's immoral, and it is far beyond their mandate. You can say whatever you want about the 100 miles of the border, and that's their new jurisdiction. Sure, but they still have no authority over citizens. And well, that's why they're asking for papers. No, they're asking for papers to racially profile you. That's why they're asking you for papers. Because I promise you they would never ask me for papers. Not unless it's an actual checkpoint. And even if it is a checkpoint to be asked for your papers is very Nazi Gestapo style. So, my call to action for anybody who's watching now or watching in the future: interfere with ICE. Stand up to them. Refuse to comply with their demands, with their orders. Yes, you probably shouldn't be taking your props. You probably shouldn't be doing that. I admit, you shouldn't be doing that. But everything else, denying them the ability to do their jobs, getting in their way, and refusing to comply with their unlawful orders, that's 100. Because on top of that, you're going to get eventually pro bono lawyers that'll take your case for you. And that case will be: citizens do not have to obey ICE, and they do not have to present anything for ICE, because ICE should only be engaging with people that they have warrants for. And they shouldn't be arbitrarily working and terrorizing people in a street, in a city, which will create a class action, which will actually finally pursue a bit of a judicial pushback. Now, granted, I say all that, and I've also said plenty of times that the Supreme Court rulings and federal judge rulings have obviously done nothing to stop this administration from acting. However, it has slowed them down. And that's what's important. Plus, if we win, or when we win, rather, that means we're also getting a big payday, and then it's going to be too expensive to be goose-stepping Nazis. So, the plan is multifaceted. Resist, dissent, sue the shit out of them. Force them to commit crimes against you. Obviously within reason, right? Be safe. Short of that, I can sit here and argue that you have the right to self-defense and to resist unlawful orders, up to and including with lethal force. But the reality is, you don't. We don't. Because if we did, we wouldn't be having to deal with this in the first place. All right? If we had rights and due process, ICE wouldn't be able to get away with what they're doing. So, as much as I would like to say resist arrest, up to and including using lethal force, that's just not a reality that we're dealing with, especially if cops are getting gassed. Can you explain why it's unlawful? Right. So there's several reasons why it's unlawful. First, it's out of their jurisdiction. Sure, they can say that they have a 100-mile border, but that's within their area. But ICE, the Department of Immigration Customs Enforcement, has no authority over citizens whatsoever. None. And the only authority that they have to exercise against anyone is with an actual warrant issued by an actual judge. A bench warrant, like an actual warrant. Not that immigration court bullshit that they keep using to harass immigrants with. So that's one of the reasons why it's unlawful. The second is the use of force. The third is using chemical weapons. And the fourth is, well, outright denying due process. And of course, 5, the racial profiling, which can be denied all you want, but the reality is what it is. So every facet of their activities, unlawfully arresting people that aren't even within their bounds to arrest, ignoring due process, ignoring civil liberties. I mean, they were arresting and zip tying naked children in the streets and then throwing them in U-Haul vans. So, no, There's no part of any of their activities, especially in Chicago and Los Angeles, that has been legal. So, carrying on.
Let me be clear. Tear gassing the women and men who serve as Chicago Police Department officers is not how we make our city safer. I'm calling.
Point of order. Neither is tear gassing citizens, or children, or dragging them out of their beds in the middle of the night unilaterally, an entire apartment building with the Call of Duty fanfare outside. So, Mr. Mayor, why don't you sack the fuck up and actually talk about the real issue and not try and protect your fucking gang members with fucking badges and guns? Why are all of these politicians so quick to protect the law enforcement and the police, the people who are literally the cause, the reason, the normalization of the brutal subjugation that ICE is engaging with? This motherfucker will get on a press conference and boo-hoo-hoo for the police, who themselves have tear-gassed men, women, and children throughout their careers. But you won't actually talk about the men, women, and children who were zip-tied in the middle of the night, some naked, elderly, and then thrown into unmarked fucking vehicles? Like, I'm sorry. That's not good enough. You should sue more. You know what you talk about. Plug Power. Plug Power? Oh, you mean I sued Plug Power? I don't remember talking about that, but I did, and I won. Is that why you brought that up? I don't get why this man acts like he has any moral high ground here. No, he really fucking doesn't.
For a full investigation into this incident and into all of the brutality that we have seen over the past week. They are taking police resources that should be in our neighborhoods, serving Chicagoans, and diverting them to deal with the chaos that they are causing.
So hold on. My Plug Power case, you're from the Netherlands. How did you find out? Is that Googleable now? If you Google Sam Ronan, my Plug Power case comes up? That's fucking wild. Ah, shit. The mic's in my way. I can't type. Let's see. I just see a bunch of my political stuff. Hold on. What's this about Hale Education? Oh, Samantha Ronan. I was like, wait a minute. That's not me. Okay. Huh. That's crazy. Well, when I look up my name on Google, that doesn't show up. The fact that it does, though, is awesome. Because that means fuck capitalism. I don't know what the asterisks was. I have the channel heavily modified.
We need ICE out of our city so that we can continue to focus on the strategies that have been working to drive violent crime down.
Yeah, terror. Okay, so still, Chicago has been terrorizing their own population with brutal policing before ICE got there. It's just now it's a problem that ICE is gassing their police forces and driving the militarized police budget into ICE's pockets instead of the Chicago PD. And here's the thing. If you really, truly want to reduce crime in any location, I don't care if it's a rural city in deep North Dakota with 7 people in it, or New York City, Bronx, New York, or Queens, whichever one's more crime-ridden nowadays. Harlem, right? That's usually one that's always depicted as a crime-ridden city in America. You fix crime by providing material conditions to the population. You don't pay for more police and give them more guns and toys to play with. You make sure that housing is affordable, groceries are affordable, utilities are affordable, and people have access to good paying jobs. You do those things, crime won't exist. At least not the petty crime. You'll still have white-collar crime because greedy motherfuckers in positions of power and authority will always exist until the purge. But after that, once the purge is done and we're living in a Ronanist society, there should be very, very, very little reason for any crime to exist. Certainly not crimes of passion, right? You catch your wife cheating on you or your husband cheating on you and you murder him. Okay, well, you can't legislate fuckery, right? You just can't keep it in your pants, right? You can't legislate that. But just about every other crime, theft, speeding, which isn't really a crime, these immigration concerns, we're fixing the shit out of that. Most crimes that, even like the violent crime, mugging's gone wrong, stabbing, shootings, give me your watch. No, bang, all right, well, I'm taking your watch, and now I have a body, now I'm going to prison, right? Carjacking, this, that, and the other. Prostitution, drug dealing, right? Why do people resort to drug dealing? Because they can't get a regular job that pays well enough. But slinging dope on the corner does. Being a prostitute does. Being a stripper does, right? These jobs, well, not that stripper's illegal, but these jobs, right? Even hitmen, they do that job because they get paid really fucking well to do it. Because being a mall cop or being an Aramark security guard pays $13 an hour in an economy where the average rent is $1,400 a month. Like, okay, well, all I know is protecting people and hurting people. So I guess I'm going to have to join a gang and become a bruiser. That sucks. I don't want to be a criminal, but I got bills to pay, right? Crime exists, especially organized crime, to fill the void that government and society has left in its wake due to, well, fuck the poor people, fuck black people, fuck these individuals. In our society, we only want the best of the best and white people to be in charge of everything. And even white people who live in poverty would rather live in poverty than see black people succeed. So our society drives these holes, these voids, and then even when it backfires on the white people who pushed for it, they still advocate for it, which exacerbates the problems, which is why gangs form, why organized crime organizations form. Crime only pays because society refuses to, because we're a capitalist hellscape, because landlords think, well, I have to raise rent. I have to charge more rent than my mortgage. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to afford to have this home. Correct. Being a landlord makes you a fucking parasite, and it's not a job to make money off of somebody else's hard work and income. And it also causes housing prices to inflate unchecked. Because every year you want more. Every year you want more. So you just raise it. 100, 100, 100, 100. Even though there's no fucking reason for you to do so. Because you're certainly not adding anything. You're not improving anything to the home. Maybe if it was mandatory that you had to spend 50% of all profits on improvements and modifications to the home and prove that they were in fact modifications, maybe there'd be a whole lot less landlords out there. But unfortunately, we live in a capitalist hellscape where money buys you whatever the fuck you want, to include housing and being able to terrorize others with it. I do find this wildly amusing that I can do that. I'm scared ICE will get way more violent. Me too. And I'm also scared that ICE is going to be far more widespread. Like, they're not in conservative states, at least not as in your face as they are in Tennessee, but they haven't gotten to Ohio yet, not in the same way that they are in Chicago, right? What I think is going to happen is they're going to go after blue cities and blue states first. And then once that becomes normalized, then they're going to start expanding into blue cities and red states. And then it's going to be big cities regardless. And then it's just going to start spiraling out of control from there, being everywhere. Harlem is now all white. Harlem got gentrified? Oh. Well, that's weird. Do you also think it is strategically the best to purge them? Well, apolitical. as we have discussed on stream, you are a much more pacifistic individual than I am. But yes, I do think it's strategically the best. Long story short, purging this country of people like this guy up here, every single member of ICE, law enforcement, most political officials, most judges, most prosecutors, probably every single sheriff, and then every single CEO and their boards. It's just necessary, because if you leave even a thimble, the tiniest microscopic atom, well, okay, microscopic atom, that's a misnomer, microscopic seed of capitalism, of fascism, of corruption, of whatever it is you want to call that we are seeing today, if you leave any amount of that in place, all it's going to do is fester and grow that much quicker. What should have happened after the Civil War is a summary execution of every single Southern leader and general and military leader. Every politician, every business owner, and certainly every single former slave owner. Every single major player in the South should have been executed summarily. There should have been no restitution. There should have been no reconstruction. None of that. After the Civil War, the South should have had every single one of their leaders wiped off the map, replaced with Northerners, and then leadership and governance move forward from there. The problem is, of course, after the Civil War, racism didn't just go away. So that's kind of where we're at. By implementing Ronanism, right? Socialism with ownership of the means of production, with stewardship by the state, and then an emphasis on making, government efficient and focusing on policy and infrastructure and economic development that's going to benefit society now and in the future, you can get rid of the profit mechanism, the profit gain, that profit-seeking mechanism. You can throw that shit right out the window, because that won't be the purpose. And by building a better tomorrow, we will be investing in our present and our future, and we will be reaping those benefits immediately, and we'll be able to see that in real time. Allowing those parasites to persist or integrate them into the new Ronanist future is just begging for confrontation. I lived in Harlem when I first moved to New York City. Then Bill Clinton opened his office in Harlem, and we got kicked out of our building because they were turning it into luxury apartments. That explains that. Last time I was in Harlem a couple of years ago, there were a bunch of white guys walking around looking like Mitt Romney's sons wearing pastel colors and golf shorts. Well, that's tragic, because Harlem used to be pretty much the epicenter of black culture and history in the United States. It's a shame that it's been gentrified. But of course, that too is by design, right? Because now, what's the most quintessential black part of the country that we can point to and be like, oh, that's black history, that's black culture, that's black music, heritage, and art? Maybe New Orleans, but from what I've been hearing, New Orleans is getting gentrified too very quickly. So, and the East Side was all Latino, right? Well, I wonder where ICE is heading next, right? So, what was this video about? Federal agents arrest Chicago alderwoman, toss tear gas on busy street in Logan Square. So this is a continuation.
Immigration agents detained a Chicago alderwoman today at a Humboldt Park medical facility. She says the only thing she's guilty of is asking them a question. Meanwhile, immigration agents were seen on cell phone video using tear gas near a Chicago school. Our Charlie DeMar is live there.
Oh, so we're tear gassing children now. And here's another thing. These ICE agents that are acting extremely out of pocket, they think they're going to get away with this. They think they're not going to be held accountable. They think that this is the new normal and that they get to be at the top of the pecking order. But, okay, let's just give them that for now, because right now they are the top of the pecking order. Right now there's nothing we can do against the Stasi, right? Like, unfortunately, there is nothing we can do. Let me rephrase. There is, but it involves props. And I'm not going to advocate for that. So right now, all we can do is dissent. Anyway, agitate. But what I'm getting at is they have to realize at a certain level that tear gassing or throwing tear gas around a school and impacting children in America, not Palestine, not Afghanistan, not Iraq, like that's, you're the bad guy. Like they have to, you have to think at some fundamental level, they're like, I just zip tied a toddler. I just tear gassed this school. I just arrested an elected official. Like at some point, these people have to recognize that they're the bad guy, right? Or is the brainwashing and propaganda so thorough that like to become an ICE agent, you're basically, getting brainwashed, and it's like, everything I do is the right thing. Everything for dear leader. All is true. Everything is permitted. Right? Like, I don't... Right, are we the baddies? Like, you just have to think that at a certain point, when you're zip tying a toddler and throwing a naked 8-year-old into a box van or dragging an elderly person out of their bed, something has to be in there. Like, this isn't okay. And if it really is white supremacy, like because the majority of these victims are black and brown, then we have a whole different set of worms to deal with, because if they're being taught, that they're animals, that they're insects, that they're parasites, that they're nothing, dehumanization and all that, then the violence that we're going to see in this country is going to become extremely distasteful. And at which point, props are always welcome. But I have a feeling it's going to have to take a lot of civil unrest and dissent to curb what I am afraid is going to happen next, which, hell, I think we predicted this back in, April, May, when we started streaming again? I think we predicted it, that we had a few months before they started terrorizing black and brown people and started going door to door, street by street, marching down, demanding papers. Like, I said we had at most 12 months, likely 6 to 8, and I think I'm on schedule. So yeah. I feel like a centrist here. Socialism is a pretty new concept to me, and I find it hard to reconcile the violent solutions with the reasons I was drawn to socialism in the first place. Empathy, fairness, understanding where people come from, and wanting a society based on solidarity rather than hate and resentment. I guess part of it is because I'm not American, so I don't have the same resentment, and I can't feel it the same way you all do, even though I can see why you would feel that way. Well, here's the problem about socialism, right? Here's the problem with communism. Here's the problem with anything to do with empathy, fairness, and understanding. The problem with those is we do not live in a society like that. Because if we did, we wouldn't be having these problems in the first place, right? Where's this, right? So this headline wouldn't exist in a fair or just and empathetic, understanding society. Because in a fair and understanding society, this just would never happen. That there is no way that this could even be conceived to happen in a fair and just, empathetic society, right? That's the problem. Unfortunately, fascists, authoritarians, dictatorships, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to call the America of today, their language is violence. And it's been violence, and many would argue that it's been violence since day one. 1776, day one of America's birthday, right? Day one, America was authoritarian. Day one, we still had slavery. Day one, women still didn't have rights. Day one, you and me didn't have rights because we weren't landowners, right? Day one, immigrants were still treated piss poorly, right? Day one, racism was still very much so there. Day one of America, the slave patrol and all that fun stuff still existed, right? Or was put into fruition. And I think within a couple of years, we were already fighting another war. So, day one of America, oh yeah, that's right, we were manifest destinying the North American continent starting day one. So we can argue that since day one, America has been a brutal and violent dictatorship, right? To everybody else except for Americans. But especially in the past century. I would say, well, I mean, look at the events, the Roaring 20s that led to the Great Depression, that led to World War II. You had corrupt, self-serving pieces of shit in office. We learned about this on Project 2025 together, right? That the golden era of conservatism led to the Great Depression and to the greatest bait and switch of American politics since, right? And the authoritarianism that has emerged from that has been a partnership with Christianity, right? With religion. And religion being one of the most authoritarian forms of organization to ever exist in humanity, right? So once conservatism married religion, this, what we're dealing with right now, are we really not going to switch? Why is none of my shit working? Anyway, this line here, that was always inevitable. What we're seeing with ICE, the fact that the executive order was signed that says anything that's anti-American, anti-Christian, and anti-capitalism is now against the law, right? Like, that was always going to happen. And I believe no, it wasn't JFK who said it, but it was from JFK's era. Somebody said when fascism comes to America, it'll be the cross wrapped in the flag, and et voila. I mean, look at the Charlie Kirk Memorial, right? It was the cross wrapped in the flag the entire damn time. The executive order for that matter. So, it's not so much that we don't agree with you, me and Anna and others in America, that we should just be able to do things the right way for the right reasons because it's the right thing to do. But unfortunately, we live in an extremely violent society. Not necessarily gun violence, although that's true, but the people who are in charge use institutional violence, enforced poverty, enforced slave wages, right? Driving up prices of goods, driving up the cost of living, wage suppression, right? Denying transportation expansion, right? Because we used to have a very large rail system in America, a passenger rail system. And then with the advent of flying and automobiles, that went out the window because there was too much freedom of movement, too much sharing of ideas, because it was a lot more convenient and faster to go from train city to city rather than driving up and around and being stuck in traffic, right? If people have the time to sit and think while they're on the train reading the newspaper or reading a book, then that means they have time to realize what's actually going on. So again, fascism, thought control, propaganda, misinformation, story crafting has been the modus operandi of the United States of America in every epoch of our technological advancement. So in order to break that cycle, some eggs, as they say, are going to need to be cracked. Yeah, I don't... So some would argue that America has never been a democracy, right? And technically, we've never been... if you want to be technical, we have never been a democracy. We've been a constitutional republic with a representative democracy, right? Because a true democracy would everybody votes on everything every time for every reason, right? Which is what happened in Athens, believe it or not. And that's one of the reasons why that fell apart. But even so, once political parties started forming and started driving national direction and policy, and the fact that they only ever went left and right, liberal and conservative, right? The fact that there were only ever two major factions is the main problem. Other countries have political parties, but they have multiple political parties that share power. They might broadly share ideas, but they are constantly fighting with 5 or 6 other people for supremacy, whereas every other election year is a coin toss as who's in charge. And that could only ever breed authoritarianism and partisanship. And that's the true bane of American politics, is the partisanship. It's one of the reasons why one of my major policies is to ban political parties in the country. Of course, banning money in politics as well. So, to the headline.
Logan Square with reaction from that community. Charlie?
Wow. My Aryan brother, Jesus Christ.
Our Charlie DeMar is live there in Logan Square with reaction.
That guy looks like something straight out of an Aryan Brotherhood fucking Sieg Heiling, straight up. Like, could they have found a more white supremacist looking dude to do this? Maybe he's a cool guy, but this dude looks like Hitler Youth on camera.
From that community, Charlie?
And Joe, good evening. This is a busy intersection. Not only is the school here, there's also a grocery store just steps away, and that tear gas sent people running earlier today. But hours after that smoke cleared, this community wanted to do something. So dozens of volunteers came to school around dismissal to make sure these kids got home safely. Uniformed federal immigration.
Okay. Let's just take a quick look at this image here. We have a masked person in a uniform and a non-police vehicle with a mask and looks like military fatigues about to...
Agents were seen on cell phone video.
Just dropped several canisters in broad fucking daylight. Anywhere else in the world, at any other time, that would have been a terrorist engaging in an act of terror in broad fucking daylight. I mean...
Uniformed federal immigration agents were seen on cell phone video throwing what witnesses describe as tear gas from an SUV before noon on Armitage near Central Park Avenue.
I don't even... Man.
Dismissal to make sure these kids got home safely.
Ah, dang it. It's going to be kind of hard to get the scene that I wanted to get.
Uniformed federal...
So to your point, apolitical. This is the country we live in right now, where a terrorist can drive an SUV with military tactical gear and a mask and just throw tear gas in a city street and then be considered the good guy. That's what we're dealing with right now. We weren't dealing with this a year ago, to be fair. We were dealing with police tear gassing protesters and so on and so forth. We were. We were also dealing with the fact that we were aiding and abetting Israel in their genocide. 100%. But this is what we are currently dealing with. There is no empathy, understanding, or fairness with this. There's none. Like, and the thing was, they did that because there was a scooter getting in his way. Son of a bitch. You can't see that. See the scooter that's in the way right there? That's why the tear gas was thrown in the first place. There is no reasoning with that. Yeah, this is
gas from an SUV before noon on Armitage near Central Park Avenue in Logan Square, just steps from an elementary school.
I felt tear gas immediately hit my eyes and nose.
Albany Rodriguez.
And again, the fact that they did this in an open street that happened to be near a school, it should not be lost on anybody. They are being given carte blanche. There are no rules of engagement, no ramifications for their actions. This made the news. This was 3 days ago, and I haven't heard anything about these agents being fired, being disciplined, any of that shit. which goes to show that DHS wants the chaos, wants the violence, wants the aggression. Because, quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned, if you see ICE, that's a lawful target. As far as I'm concerned, they are a lawful target, and they are terrorizing wherever they are. They are honest-to-God terrorists. And the fact that so few people seem to be willing to say that in positions of power and authority, like the mayor prior to this, is actually insane. Actually dangerous. Never mind insane. It's literally dangerous to not be calling these actions the terrorist actions that they are. Yeah, right. They probably got a bonus for tear gassing children.
Works nearby and recorded this video of the incident.
Yeah, I just think these tactics are disgusting and they're inhumane.
Cars can be seen blocking the white unmarked SUV the masked agents were in. Then you can see the white smoke. The tear gas sends people running into nearby buildings.
It's very painful, extremely painful. It was burning my upper lip and my eyes were bright red.
Kari Solberg not only witnessed the incident, she returned to the elementary school for dismissal with other volunteers to make sure the students got home safely.
I don't feel safe.
I mean, the school was right fucking there. And they didn't even... That's the thing. They threw the tear gas as a crowd dispersal technique instead of any sort of other de-escalation thing that they could have done. And then this lady's like, I'm afraid.
I feel sad for my neighbors. I feel anxious about the future.
There was a call put out to help protect kids as they would try to walk home and not have to deal with this violence. I can't believe this is the United States of America.
You are going to be placed under arrest.
In a separate incident, 26-ward alderperson Jessie Fuentes was handcuffed by federal immigration agents as she questioned them at a Humboldt Park medical facility. She was there after ICE was reported in the building.
And I simply asked, well, what did I do wrong? Outside of asking you if you have a signed judicial warrant, I want you to articulate to me, what law did I break? They had to take those handcuffs off.
And alderperson Fuentes incident, 26-ward alderperson Jessie Fuentes was handcuffed by...
I said I would focus on these streams in a way that I would contrast what my administration would do rather than just get angry and enraged at what I'm seeing. But folks, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to share a little secret with you. This right here makes me want to walk around armed and then find these motherfuckers and arrest them, citizens arrest style, and protect my fellow countrymen, because this is an act of terrorism. Like that's all it is. You're using your authority to abuse others. That's not lawful. And again, if you're an elected official, you have every single fucking right to challenge any authority that is being misused. That is literally your right. And the fact that, oh, well, I'm a federal agent, I can do whatever I want. Well, no, you can't, because again, ICE literally only has jurisdiction over immigrants, so long as they have a warrant. So, watching this stuff makes me really grateful that it's not happening here, because we wouldn't be having streams anymore. I'd be in prison or dead. But it makes me very angry, because I would rather be in prison or dead instead of watching this and feeling powerless to do anything about it when I do have the means to do something about it, and so do we all. We all have the First and the Second and the Ninth Amendments. Those are the three amendments that are supposed to guarantee liberty and freedom in any country. The first is obviously free speech and the right to protest your government. Those two things, if you don't have that, you don't have freedom in your country. And this administration is trying very, very hard to take that away from us. The Second Amendment, however, is meant to prevent this shit from happening. That's literally what it's supposed to. If words aren't working, then pew pew is supposed to be the answer. The American way, violence to stop violent acts, right? That's why the Second Amendment exists, so that if this ever were to rear its ugly head, the citizenry would rise up armed and be like, no. Maybe without even having to fire a shot, right? But one-on-one violence is going to ensue. And then there's the Ninth Amendment. And that's one that I don't think people talk about enough. And I don't think I have it saved here. So, let's go ahead and do Ninth Amendment, because I keep talking about it. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. That's the Ninth Amendment. What's the 10th? Because I want to make sure. Here we go. That was the other one. So it's actually the 9th and the 10th. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Right? So, the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So, for those of us who don't know what the word enumeration means, still with these AI overviews. All right, well, a specific formal counting of the population for apportionment or a list of explicitly granted powers or rights within the text, right? That's what I was trying to get at. Mentioned, specifically designated, or expressly named or granted, right? So, what enumeration is saying is that whatever isn't explicitly stated is not implied or not meant to construe that other rights are still in existence for the American people. And yet so often is it argued, well, it's not in the Constitution, that means we can do whatever it wants, and you don't have the right to argue about it. Right? Which basically means common law. That's like the general meaning, is that this is supposed to provide common law. But then, well, common law isn't written anywhere, so you're getting a speeding ticket. Or you're getting arrested for resisting arrest, even though they didn't give you a reason to arrest you for in the first place. You have the right to resist unlawful detention, except for the 5 times Supreme Court overturned it. Those are the rights that are actually 9th Amendment protected, or 10th Amendment protected. Now, to be fair, I am not a constitutional scholar, so I don't know which one carries more weight. But I always quote the 9th because it specifically talks to the people. And then powers is a good one because it also includes or to the people. Now, states tend to take over because, again, state government is supposed to be from the consent of the governed, the people of the state, right? So people are delegating power to the states over themselves. But ultimately, people have the right and the power to deny the state their power and authority. That's fundamentally the intent of the Constitution and the way that it was written by the framers. Rather, that was the intent through the framers based on their letters, on their writings, on all of the other things that went into building the Constitution. If you read Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, and several other founders, those are the discussions that they have. In fact, Thomas Jefferson said he wouldn't be surprised if every 10 years we wrote a new Constitution to deal with the times as they were. You see what I'm saying? So when I say that we have the right, the lawful authority, and in my opinion, duty and obligation to interfere, it is because of the 9th and the 10th Amendments, respectively. First and second, that's just the sprinkles, the cherry, whatever you want to call it, right? The Second Amendment, realistically, trying to argue the Second Amendment is going to be difficult in a state where violence against the state and justifying it would only threaten and undermine the power of the state, right? And which all immediately undermines the 9th and the 10th anyway, right? It completely goes, if the state is more worried about itself than the freedom and rights of the people, then we've already lost. And we can argue that the state has cared more about itself than the people since 1789. Like, pick a year, right? After the founding. After George Washington stepped down, that was pretty much, I think, when democracy went with it, right? So, this is why I keep saying we do have the right to stand up to ICE, to resist ICE, to arrest ICE, to get in the way of ICE, to denounce ICE, and to demand that they are expelled from our cities and from our states. We have those rights. The problem with having rights is the ability to exercise them and the ability to enforce them. I can't enforce my rights by myself. You can't enforce your rights by yourself. The half dozen or 20 or 30,000 as individuals don't have the power to enforce those rights by ourselves. But if we collectively came together, we'd have a much better shot. Now, of course, if we're dealing with this situation where, you know, we do outnumber them, but then they choose to throw tear gas in the middle of public, well, then I suggest interesting and expensive, as it turns out. Sorry, guys. This is the military issue M50 gas mask. This is literally what I in the United States Air Force active duty was issued for my chemical warfare gear. The M50 gas mask also works because during basic training, you go into the gas chamber and you have to breathe through the gas mask and prove that it works. And then you have to take it off and you got to take a big deep breath to also prove that the gas mask works, right? So, Avon protection, it seems like. That's where you can get, they call it a Respirator Pro kit. There we go. Oh, shit. So, there it is. $700 though, unfortunately. Small, medium, or large. Is it the same price? It is the same price. So, start GoFundMes. Get gas masks. Or, if you're going to be in a protest group, it's a little gross, but you wet naps and chem wipes, those are pretty affordable. Keep the gas mask and gas mask carrier with 3 or 4 different sizes every time you go to a protest, and be ready to don them. I'm just saying there are ways to combat tear gas and still be able to conduct our resistance activities. Would you say the same if you did not think it was allowed by the Constitution? Or are you using it as justification? That's a great question. Those are 2 very excellent questions. Would I be advocating for resistance if we didn't have the constitutional rights to do so? Or am I using the Constitution as a right to, or as justification to discuss resisting our occupation? Well, to your point, I'm not using the Constitution. It is more of a justification, though. But if I couldn't advocate it through the Constitution, I'd advocate it on the merits of morality, ethics, and as you said earlier, empathy. If we're going to be treated like a hostile nation and being invaded by our own government, then we have been deemed as enemies and adversaries of our national government, and therefore we should not comply with our national government, especially if they view us as adversaries. And if they view us as adversaries, then no amount of peaceful resistance or compliance will ever change the fact that they view us as adversaries. It just means that they will have less interference when they treat us as such, as we have seen in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Palestine. Just because you don't fight back doesn't mean you're not going to be killed, attacked, kidnapped, or demonized in the media by the aggressive nation, the aggressive power. And you can go to any reservation and ask any indigenous person, hey, does the government still view you as an adversary? And if so, why do you not do anything about it? And they'll tell you, because, well, what little life we have, we would like to keep. And that's just not okay in my book. I get where they're coming from, but the fact that it exists, the fact that that's the problem, the fact that that is a very real and justified response. You can't resist a government unless you are willing to face consequences, right? Those who resisted the Nazis were killed as traitors, but they were heroes. They were resistance fighters. They executed 17-year-olds. They executed children who defied the Nazi regime. And they were deemed traitors. Their families were blacklisted, and they suffered for it. And many of their families probably resented their kids and their teenagers for it as well. But the reality is, those individuals, the ones who were crucified by the Nazis, were the actual heroes, were the actual patriots. And the fact that there is no counter-propaganda to highlight that fact, that resistance is patriotism, that standing up to this is patriotism, that standing up to fascism, to brutality, of being treated like adversaries, is the most patriotic thing any citizen could do, is the problem. Because no news is going to do it, because they're owned by the fascists. Apparently, streamers and creators aren't going to do it because they don't want to get deplatformed, and it's their livelihood. So, where does that leave us? As it turns out, it's your little streamers, right? The little baby streamers. If we can grapevine the message to all of our little itty-bitty audiences and get that push going and normalize that push on smaller platforms, they're not monitoring us. Not yet. Maybe they will. Maybe this is going to get shut off, really, unfortunately, right? But until or unless that happens, our only option is underground networks. It's word of mouth. It's building that community. Now, something worth mentioning. Why don't we have a resistance? Why don't we have a left-leaning organization? Why is there no organization amongst leftists, activists, and counter-protesters and this, that, and the other? Well, it's because we also lack conflict resolution skills, right? Well, I've been on the streets longer than you have, so you're going to do what I say, or you can get packing. All right, well, fuck you then. I'm not working with some jackass like you. See, nobody wants to protest anymore. It's the same shit. And it's because of that rugged individualism. We haven't been a part of a community since the 40s and the 50s, since the Industrial Revolution really took off in the United States and commodification became the norm. And that was, again, by design. If people do not know how to talk to each other, or even rely on each other, or even want to talk or rely on each other, then that means they are isolated, meaning they can never unite, meaning they cannot resist the state. Which is why I say, if we're really going to look at authoritarianism in the United States of America, I would put the pin somewhere between the 40s and the 50s is when that really took off. Okay. I think it's good that we have the constitutional rights, but legality doesn't dictate morality. Also, this administration doesn't care about legality, so why should we? We can't let them do whatever they want while we play by the rules. And also, the left has been systematically destroyed for decades. Correct. And those are all things that are very true. And, you know, that I have discussed at one point or another, at length at one point or another, right? Anna is absolutely correct. And she's been doing this a lot longer than I have. So I want to emphasize that we can resist to whatever degree we want to resist, but we have to be able to do it in numbers, because otherwise we're individuals that will be crushed beneath that leather boot. And that's what I'm saying. We need to rebuild those community connections. We need to, relearn how to do that, and then actually believe in it. We need to rely on one another, build those connections, rely on each other, and truly build those networks again. Now, are we going to be able to do it with just anybody? No. Realistically, nobody in my neighborhood I would trust with this in the slightest. No. First of all, there's a Marine that lives right across the street from me with a tattered flag, a tattered U.S. flag flying in the wind, which tells me he, A, doesn't know anything about flag law, and B, anything to do with decorum. Why would you fly a tattered flag in the first place? You're too fucking cheap to buy a brand new flag in the first place? Like, no. So, I wouldn't even trust my neighbors to have my back for like a cup of sugar, right? Actually, my neighbor right next to me, I trust him to help me with yard work. He's a good guy. And some of the elderly folk, they're friendly enough, but who's your revolutionary, right? That's what we need to build. It would be great to build our communities again, right? I'd love to go have cookies with the old couple and talk about the good old days or whatever until I find out they're racist. Or talk to the Hank Hill that lives right next to me. It'd be great to learn about, propane and propane accessories. But in order to get to that point, we need to make sure that this point is gone, erased from society, and can never, ever, ever, ever rear its ugly masthead ever again. That's what we need to do. And the way we do that is by finding our fellow leftists and activists and working together and truly focusing on conflict resolution. We can use the same rules as BDSM, safe words. Hey, we're getting a little heated, we're arguing really hard. Let's use the safe word rather than storm off, exit the Zoom, whatever. And you know what the most common safe word in the world is? Pineapple. So go ahead. There you go. Activist organization and liaisoning. Use your safe word. Pineapple. Everybody take a deep breath, step back, figure out what the main point was, and then calmly, like adults, have at it again. All right. We have gotten through 2 videos, so we need to keep going. Honorable mention. Supreme Court rejects Ghislaine Maxwell's appeal, which is good. The U.S.
Supreme Court has rejected...
Quite frankly, that's surprising, considering how much leverage she was able to wield recently. I kind of saw her getting a lot more benefit. So the fact that the Supreme Court rejected it is pretty fucking
Maxwell's appeal, upholding her conviction and 20-year sentence for trafficking underage...
Do Republicans or Democrat liberals like me more? Ooh, that's a good question. I think, yeah, I'm going to go with neither. I don't think either a true Democrat or a true Republican would like me at all. I think the only people that like me would be leftists and people who do not like the fascism that we're dealing with. Did you just do a dog whistle? No.
With
At least I don't think
Epstein.
I did.
Maxwell's legal team argued she was wrongly prosecuted due to
Is there
Epstein's
no sound?
2007 non-prosecution deal in Florida.
Why the fuck? Oh, of course, my background music thing stopped playing. Of course it did. Yeah, there wasn't sound for me, though.
Claiming agreement should have protected her from later charges in New York. But the justices declined to hear the case, and the lower court had already ruled the deal did not apply to her or bind prosecutors outside Florida. Maxwell.
So the Supreme Court finally did its job against the largest pedophile ring person that's convicted in America. But in terms of preventing fascism, can't be bothered. Oh, I'm sorry. They keep ruling to stop doing it, and then when they do it anyway, they just rule again and again and again and again, which fundamentally means that, well, the Supreme Court is tacitly supporting this administration. All right.
A federal judge in Oregon on Sunday temporarily blocked President Donald Trump's administration from sending any National Guard troops to police Portland. The ruling by U.S. District Judge Karen Emmerich came just one day after she temporarily blocked Trump from deploying 200 Oregon National Guard troops to the city, saying that protests there did not warrant a military presence.
That's because no protest would ever warrant a military presence. Also, look at how police have to stop ICE agents who are already gas masked up. Remember those M50 gas masks? Oh, wait, hold on. Oh, that's not going to work. You're not going to be able to see the side-by-side. That's the real deal. That's what most federal and law enforcement use. Anyway, you have police getting in the face of ICE agents who are, again, armed with props and already gas masked up, again, looking for the violence.
The administration then moved to call in troops from California and Texas, which Judge Emmerich blocked on Sunday, saying that, quote, nothing had changed since her early...
Okay, first of all, I don't think we have any excuses. If this paralyzed individual on their super wheelchair can go to a protest, then I guess none of us have any fucking excuses. Secondly, it's against the flag code. Oh, it's against the flag code to wear it as a cape. I mean, but to the point of if you're gonna go to a protest and you want to highlight how that what you're protesting against is un-American, having your American flag with you is a pretty good sign that if you get tear gassed, like it clearly had nothing to do with the American dream or the Constitution, right? Because they just tear gassed somebody who was very clearly pro-American. So remember how I said a few months ago that like using the American flag in protests is a good thing, even if we're acting like fascists? It's because it can still be our rallying cry. We are the real Americans. This is the America that I'm willing to fight for, not your fascist piece of shit. So, just throwing that out there. These are all small treats. We get a little bit of justice as a treat. Yeah, right. I think it might be counterproductive to get those small treats because it should not cause any less resentment. Yeah. Superman as a human shield. Well, isn't that what the latest Superman movie was essentially anyway?
Earlier ruling. National Guard troops are state-based militia forces that answer to their governors, except when called into federal service. Trump has said their deployment to Portland is necessary to respond to protests at an immigration facility in the city, which continued on Sunday evening. Emmerich's ruling will remain in effect until at least October 19th. That means the Trump administration will be blocked from sending National Guard troops from any state or Washington, D.C. to Portland, while Oregon and California seek a longer-term ruling in court. The ruling is a setback for the...
Also, the fact that these guardsmen are obeying those orders to deploy to an American city for the express purpose of anything not resembling a natural disaster is an unlawful order. It's in violation of the Posse Comitatus Act and should be resulting in a courts-martial at best. So, there's a couple more videos about the blockage, which is great, don't get me wrong, but we did cover that. So, let's see what this... So here's a longer video about the mayor. So let's hear what this guy has to say.
912, welcome back. We're going right to Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson speaking about an executive order amid the ICE actions in Chicago.
Building code violations. The residents were dealing with deplorable conditions already, and this was before ICE trampled on them. But when they came in the middle of the night, they terrorized the families that were living there. There were children who were without clothing. They were zip-tied, taken outside at 3 o'clock in the morning. A senior resident, an American citizen.
Okay. I guess I owe him an apology for my earlier comments at the beginning of the stream, because we didn't watch this one first. He did, in fact, advocate for the citizens. He then also went on to talk about what happened to the cops. Mea culpa. See? Now that's leadership. I made a mistake. I was wrong. I'm owning it. Imagine if we had that in the country. All right. So, skipping.
Good evening and thank you.
He said it, so we're good. We're happy. So, this right here. SLED investigating fire at Edisto Beach home associated with South Carolina Circuit Court judge. So, the South Carolina Circuit Court judge, say that 5 times fast, had their home burned down after they ruled against the Trump administration. So, nothing to see here, folks.
Thank you for joining us on News 2. I'm Gabriel Johnson. Well, this large house fire that you see behind me hospitalized multiple people on Edisto Island today. And we're learning that it happened at a house addressed to a South Carolina circuit.
Did you see Germany being on the wrong side of history again? Yeah, I did. And I absolutely commented on it, because how the fuck is Germany going to lose an open book test on a subject that they fucking wrote? I just don't fucking get it. Yeah, that's why I said America is a very violent country.
Circuit Court judge. This afternoon, I spoke with nearby witnesses as they described what they saw in the immediate aftermath.
And you could see the flames from the beach.
This video shows flames engulfing a house off of Planters Retreat on Edisto Island. Colleton County Fire Rescue assisted multiple agencies in fighting this fire. They say 3 people were taken to the Medical University of South Carolina in downtown Charleston. Their injuries are currently unknown. Shortly after the fire, Olivia Crosby told me that she and her dad saw it all take place just down the road from where they were staying.
He said it was so hot he couldn't even cross over the bridge to get there. But he said he couldn't do much because the whole house was already on fire and just the heat from the fire. He couldn't do much.
While on scene, News 2 learned.
Now, I don't know much about house fires, and I do know a little bit about fire, just campfires. I don't know what would have to be burning in a house fire for it to be so hot that you couldn't get near it, even from quite a distance away. But that doesn't seem like a natural house fire to me, if it can get that hot.
Learned from residents that a judge lives in this gated neighborhood, which has very limited access as it sits right on the marsh. Public property records link the home address to Diane Goodstein, who is a circuit court judge, according to South Carolina court records. Locals say that they were deeply concerned for everybody's safety.
We were worried for the people, but also we were concerned that it was going to spread.
It was just scary, and we hope that everyone was okay.
Tonight, we received.
What's crazy is that all these rich kids and rich people are like, why is our rich people homes on fire? That's crazy. Oh shit, didn't a judge live there? That's wild. The complete separation from reality that rich people and people with influence have from just, hello, a judge's house just inexplicably caught fire in a blazing inferno. There were 3 people injured in that home, meaning it was probably caretakers or somebody else using the house, right? A house does not catch fire like that quickly without somebody noticing it or calling the fire department before it gets to that point. That's not how that works. I'm sorry.
Received a statement from state court officials saying, quote, Chief Justice John W. Kittredge is aware of an incident involving Circuit Court Judge Diane Goodstein. At this time, SLED is on the scene and will be investigating as soon as the fire has been contained. Local law enforcement partners have been alerted and asked to provide extra patrols and security. The judicial branch will remain in close communication with SLED.
I like how the news report is, we're just talking about a little fire, and that all of these judges and important people in society are made aware of the situation, including the judge whose house just burned, and everybody's just doing good. Like, seriously? Are we just... Again, if this isn't proof that we're the most propagandized country in the world, that we can't even give a real news report, like, Supreme or Circuit Court judge's beach house burned to the ground within a day or two of denying the Trump administration whatever it is they wanted. More at 11. Like, come on! It's not hard! Tell the truth! Alright, let's see what this guy has to say.
South Carolina Judge Diane Goodstein. And before you ask, yes, she has voted against the Trump administration on some recent, pretty high-profile cases. Her husband was a former state senator on the Democratic side, and he had to be airlifted to the hospital. In fact, the entire family was in the house at the time of the explosion, and they only survived because they had to jump out the window. Reportedly, the home was...
Why? Why was that not in the news? Maybe it was because they didn't have as much information. Still, all three of them were in the house, so it wasn't even a beach house. That was their house. And they only survived by jumping out of a window. Again, a house doesn't end up in flames like that. I mean, yes, can flames spread quickly? Absolutely. With modern whatever, a house can truly end up in an inferno in under 15 minutes. That is technically true. But that's our houses. That's our, poor people houses. These rich people houses are made with real concrete, real stone, real granite. They're not going to catch on fire that easily and that quickly as one of our houses would, which is held together by fucking particle board, drywall, and matchsticks, okay? So...
lit on fire after an explosion, and it's not clear who was the cause behind it, but...
Oh! There was an explosion! Gee! Why isn't that part being mentioned in the news?
It does need to be pointed out that this happened less than a day after Stephen Miller issued this tweet. Now, no...
And it happened less than a day after Goebbels gave a tweet. The issue before is now is very simple and clear. There is a large and growing movement of left-wing terrorism in this country. It is well organized and funded. It is shielded by far-left Democrat judges, prosecutors, and attorneys general. The only remedy is to use legitimate state power to dismantle terrorism and terror networks. And then, less than a day after that, an explosion goes off in a Democratic judge's house, which we're supposed to believe is left-wing terrorism.
I'm not accusing Stephen Miller of being behind this, but the timing is a bit concerning. And for those of you listening along and you don't want to read, I'll just read the tweet for you. It says,
No, we don't need to do that.
Them as tensions or connections here. We don't know who did the fire. It could be anything. It could be just a bad, fuse or something. Who knows? But given the rhetoric lately, given the hypersensitivity to violence between the different parties, this is something to keep in mind and pay attention to.
This is what kills me. This guy.
So this is the home of organized and funded, and it is movement of left-wing. I'll just read the tweet for you. It says,
what is it?
A bit concerning. And for those of you, no, I'm not accusing Stephen Miller of being behind this, but...
Immediately, I am not accusing Goebbels of being behind it. But... and you're right, I can't accuse him either. I can't accuse Stephen Miller of being behind this bombing because there's probably enough degrees of separation to where even if he did order it, he probably ordered it through this tweet and some department executed it, right? But you're right. The timing of that tweet to the bombing of the judge's house and the fact that everybody was in the house, And again, apolitical. This is the violence that we are up against. A peaceful protest, singing Kumbaya, voting our way out of it. It's not going to happen. It's just, as much as I would like to agree with you that we could empathize our way out of this, this is Goebbels himself, reincarnated into Stephen Miller. And, yeah, there's just no fucking way.
All right, so we're seeing here a home. This is on Chicago. This is in Chicago, just southwest of downtown, near the intersection of 40th and McKenzie. If you want your goggles.
No, this feels like a third world country.
You want to see? So, Status Coup. I think they stream, don't they? I think they do. But I don't think. I think this was the longer version of the shorter video we saw, where they were covering the federal agents arresting the alderwoman.
A shame. But don't forget, you have a family. Money talks, bullshit walks. Money hungry motherfuckers. But God bless you. I hope you get home safe to your family, baby doll.
First, the Chicago police wasn't here. They didn't have a presence. But then after a while, I guess they started coming in, and over there they formed the line on the other side, because I was on the other side as well. At first.
Look.
They formed a line.
There's the Chicago PD that's protecting Chicagoans and serving Chicagoans and servicing the city of Chicago with their police presence. Interesting. This right? See that big microwave sonar thing? Yeah, when that thing gets sent off, it can make your ears bleed and you vomit right on the spot. That right there is what the mayor of Chicago was defending a second ago in that first video where I went off on him. That right there is what the mayor of Chicago was defending. Chicago tax dollars at work. Our police forces protecting us. Yeah, no. Here's the thing. As president, I do intend to federalize every police force in the country. All of them. We could argue that they would get wrapped up into the FBI, or maybe we dismantle the FBI and we call it something else. I don't really know yet how that structure will be named, per se. I do have it here, though. What do I have as my... well, that's the wrong one. Aviation reform. Here we go. Jesus. Police reforms. There we go. Federalization of policing standards, adherence, demilitarization, refocus on criminal issues, and federal funding of the federal police program. So maybe I do just call it the federal police force. All current local, state, and federal funding for law enforcement departments at their respective levels shall be immediately halted, and those funds reallocated to other necessities within the provisions of this other reforms. Federal police programs shall be funded through federal funds, just as other federal agencies, with extreme measures taken to ensure no abuse or misappropriation of funds. Funding shall provide for the following as a minimum. All funding line items shall be made publicly available on the federalpoliceprogram.gov website. Oh, that's what I'm calling it, the Federal Police Program. Right? So, law enforcement will exist, but it's going to be heavily scrutinized, heavily transparent, and it's not going to have anything to do with civilian interaction. We're going to have other agencies to deal with. If we have to deal with the public, because of a riot, or because somebody's crazy and off their meds, or drunk in public, or God forbid speeding, we will deal with that in a non-law enforcement way. And that mayor is one of the good ones. Yeah, no, that, to my point. Or to the point I was making earlier. So, yeah, there are any number of things that we can and should do in this country. This is unacceptable. all of this law enforcement bullshit, that's done. We're not playing those games.
Out of everybody I despise the most, ICE at the top of the list right now. You guys are fucking traitors, man.
You want to see what real independent journalism funded?
Michigan.
See you in Nevada.
Thanks to people like you, we could get the
Oh.
corporate media. They've been
I
lying
didn't
to us
realize
for years.
Jordan
You don't
Sheridan
say
was
to
in
people,
this thing.
You are the man.
You'll keep us on.
5 tours of duty. My first one was Operation Sea Signal in Cuba, Operation Joint Endeavor in Bosnia in 1996. Cuba was 95. I did Operation Joint Guard, which was Kosovo in 1999. I did Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2008 in Iraq. And my final tour was in Afghanistan, Operation Enduring Freedom in 2013. And I got to go see the best president in history, Barack Obama, give out the Medal of Honor at the White House in 2014. And I retired under him in 2016.
Do you think we actually have a real democracy to save?
Here's the big problem, guys. It's the fact that America was so fucking corrupt to let his ass back in there. This is so much bigger than Donald Trump. It's the fact that you got somebody that is openly corrupt, openly racist as Trump, and they still bent the knee. That lets you know it wasn't about Trump. He's just the avatar. The country has always been white supremacist. This is the country I grew up with. I remember these white people losing their mind when I first moved in our apartment building in California. You know, called me the hard ER, said I was bringing down the property value. That hatred has always been there. I couldn't leave base in Fort Leonard Wood because of the racism. You know, they didn't want to rent to me in Indiana because of the racism after I did fucking 4 tours for the country. And so now I'm like, you know what? Fuck it, right? Let that shit burn. I don't think someone.
So, here's my thing. I recognize every single one of those ribbon. Well, not every single one of them. Some of them are Army specific. But, like, this one I think is good conduct. And then these ones are like Army Overseas Service. That's the Army Active Duty ribbon. And then some of these, like, that's the Global War on Terror. This is an achievement medal, good conduct. No, that's an overseas medal. I think that's a good conduct medal. I don't know what these ones are, but when they have the thing, I think those are, like he was saying, the deployment tabs. So I think some of these are deployment tabs, right? And that's the active duty during combat conflict right there. I don't know all of them by heart anymore, unfortunately. And then this badge right here is the fact that he was, I think that was his job duty. And now these stripes right here puts him as Sergeant Major. So he was pretty high. He was an E9. That's the highest you can get in the Army. Oh, wait, no. He might not have been an E9. I think he needed one more understripe. Doesn't matter. Dude was high ranking. Very decorated. But he fought in a imperialist war. He's proud of that service, and I'm proud of his service. But the reality is he was woken up to the same problem that we were woken up to, that I was woken up to, is that we weren't fighting for our country. We weren't fighting for freedom or democracy. We were fighting for another rich man's war. And as he said earlier, the greatest president we've had, Obama. How many times have we talked on this stream how much we hate Obama and love Obama at the same time, because we hate the imperialism that he engaged in, right? We hate the fact that he got us mired into the Middle East more and more, did the deportations, expanded ICE, the whole 9 yards, right? We hate that. But he is so fucking charismatic, it's like you can't despise him with the same vitriol that you can somebody like Trump or Reagan, because they didn't have redeeming qualities. So here you are seeing a combat vet, a black combat vet, dealing with racism in a time where many people have said, oh, there wasn't racism in the 90s and the early thousands. Sergeant Overlord would beg to differ. And that's the point, right? That's the point. I haven't experienced racism. I haven't witnessed racism. I also grew up in a lily white neighborhood. a town in Lancaster, Ohio, where it is one of the whitest cities in the country. Of course, I later found out that it was the seat of the KKK for Ohio. So, imagine that, right? So, here you have a combat veteran being discriminated against while having already served his country or in the process of serving his country. And now witnessing the further devolvement and degradation of our stability. He got to retire under Obama. I would have retired too if I thought Trump was about to get into office. I'm like, nope, punching that ticket. Fuck that. And I mean, look at his expression. He's still deeply committed and devoted to his country that he literally fought and bled for. But he is disgusted and sad and angry with what is happening. So don't just take it from me as an Air Force vet. Take it from a combat vet. 22 years Army throughout the Middle East. Like, we served our countries with the rose-colored glasses thinking that military service was going to do something. And then we come home and we see the racism, we see the discrimination, we see the policies that harm citizens. And now we're deploying the secret police against citizens in Chicago and tear gassing them? Absolutely fucking not. Simply Steve, welcome to the stream. Something else we can all do if you're a business and or property owner, refuse to do business with and or rent to MAGAs. The baker refused to bake a cake for the gay couple. You can cite your spiritual convictions about not supporting Nazis. My man. Why did it look like the USA was always the good guy to so many people, though? Propaganda. A shit ton of propaganda. Do I have more status? In terms of, will I be discriminated against? No. And if I stood next to him with my 4 stripes, he'd have infinitely more status. And if I wore my dress blues, I have like, I think two rows and like 1 on top. Yeah, no. In terms of military status, I got nothing compared to this guy. Well, that's the problem in America, right? This gentleman is eminently more qualified to talk about military heritage and service with regards to witnessing fascism unfold, as well as having the racial background of experiencing racism while serving his country. Like, eminently more qualified to hit the point home than this white guy that's speaking to you from the Oval Office. But optics, right? People aren't going to listen to the black man, whether or not he has all the ribbons in the military service. If me and him were sitting in the same room in front of a white audience, they'd probably still listen to me over this guy. And that's just really fucking unfortunate. Speaking of racism.
All right, Alexis, we look forward to that reporting later on this evening. Thank you so much. The FBI has fired as many as 20 agents, including about 15 linked to a 2020 incident where agents were photographed kneeling with protesters during...
Dude, you are a black man. You are a black man. You are a black American. And you referred to this as an incident? Can you stop for 5 seconds throating the boot? God damn. Kneeling, yeah. So, the football player, Colin Kaepernick, rather than refusing to get up for the Pledge of Allegiance, decided to kneel during the Pledge of Allegiance as a show of support to the country, but in speaking out against police brutality, and he became blacklisted by the NFL ever since. And kneeling has been used as a symbol of resistance and support for social movements ever since. The problem is law enforcement have been using the kneeling for photo shoots since then, and then turn right around and tear gas protesters anyway. So the fact that the FBI did it for, again, a photo shoot is unsurprising, but the fact that they are getting fired for it, that's the surprising thing.
Incident where agents were photographed kneeling with protesters during demonstrations over the death of George Floyd. Well, the kneeling incident was very controversial at the time, with FBI leadership initially defending the agents' actions as a way to de-escalate the tensions. Well, the Justice Department said earlier this year that it is reviewing the conduct of more than 1,500 agents associated with cases that have found disfavor in the new Trump era, including investigating.
So we're purging the FBI for conduct un-American, or I'm sorry, un-Trump approved. And people think we're still a democracy? Like, that's the least democratic thing I have heard today. And we literally watched an ICE agent tear gas a neighborhood. So now he's going to purge 1,500 federal agents because they didn't do their jobs the way he would have wanted them to do it? Like, never mind the secret police. Wouldn't that be turning the FBI into the SS? Jesus Christ. Sure, let's hear from the governor.
There is no invasion here. There is no insurrection here.
Yeah, there is an invasion. And yes, there is an insurrection happening in Illinois, specifically in Chicago. But it's from our own country. From this administration. This terrorist regime is literally invading Chicago to perform an insurrection against the United States of America as like the stomping grounds for proving that people can and will tolerate it. Bucko off, King.
And local and state law enforcement are on the job and managing what they need to. Without my permission and against my vigorous objections, the president has federalized 300 Illinois National Guard military troops and hundreds of National Guard members from Texas. And he has...
You can't do that. I'm not happy. Well, I'm going to do it anyway. Okay, I'm going to go on a press conference. Buddy, there is no legal right for the president to federalize the National Guard without your permission or explicit request to do so. You could literally order the general of the Illinois Guard to stand down, and they would fucking have to. Like, this isn't... My administration, one, won't be dealing with this because I'm not going to be trying to federalize the National Guard to invade cities regardless. But a lot of the provisions that I will be implementing as president will be to ensure that there are clear separations of powers between the president, the states, the cities, the counties, and so on and so forth, and that any attempt to breach those separation of powers will result in the immediate removal of that official, whether that's the president, governor, congressperson, senator, what have you. If you exceed your mandate and your explicit powers designated to you, you are immediately removed, you are expelled from your position and immediately charged, by default, de facto charged, and found guilty of that crime, and immediately go to sentencing. Do not pass go, do not collect $200, straight to jail. Or the gallows. Yeah, 5 years ago they did something that Trump didn't like, and now they're getting purged for it. Crazy how when you get angry, you just keep watching. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Has ordered them to activate for duty in Illinois.
By the way, honorable mention, every single one of these deployments are not resulting in actual full-time benefits, because you would need to be getting orders for 30 days in order to get lodging and BAH and BAS, which is housing and food allowances while deployed. And while deployed, or activated rather, you also get your full salary, right? But if you're not getting a full month, you're not getting your full active duty pay or benefits, meaning TRICARE, meaning hazard pay, deployment pay, all this, that, and the other. He is literally using the National Guard as pawns. The Guard are obeying the orders, and then he is going out of his way to ensure that they do not get the full pay and benefits for being used as pawns in the first place, and these idiots are still obeying the orders. Again, we don't have to use props in order to resist fascism. We could simply ignore fascism's authority. The National Guard could refuse to muster. Like what's happening with the police in Chicago, could refuse to aid and support ICE. Citizens could refuse to show them papers. Again, refusing them hospitality, food, and resources. We can starve and psychologically torment every single one of these ICE agents and the National Guard troops who decided to obey unlawful orders. That is how easy it would be to topple this administration. But we're not doing that. Which is why we're having press conferences with an Italian-looking mafioso boss guy and a Chicago mayor who will wax poetic for police but not have the same fire and fury for citizens. He'll mention it in his speech, I'll give him that much. Just cowardice.
Upon Governor Abbott to immediately withdraw his support for this decision.
Also, isn't this in of itself kind of a civil war? A foreign state is sending their National Guard into a different state against that state's wishes. I'm fairly certain that would be considered an act of war in any other expression of the term. We're going to send my National Guard troops to a state that didn't request it or want it. And I'm going to do it with or without your permission. So, again, conservatives and the right are always talking about the Civil War, the Civil War, the Civil War. We've already been fighting the Civil War, but it's a bloodless victory because y'all aren't even fighting back. This would be the proof. I'm asking the governor of Texas to remove your troops. I don't know, buddy. Maybe you should countermand the orders of the terrorist in chief, take control of your own National Guard, and refuse to allow the Texas National Guard to enter your airspace. Now, again, I'm not advocating for civil war. I'm definitely not. But if we're just not going to take a stand at all, and we're just going to roll over every time this fucking idiot does something, then let's just be done with it. So that we can fight the war of resistance instead of whatever the fuck stupidity this is.
Decision and refuse to allow Texas National Guard members to be used in this way. Let me be clear. Donald Trump is using our service members as political props and as pawns in his illegal effort to militarize our nation's cities. I want to thank Attorney General Kwame Raoul and his staff, along with my General Counsel Ann Spillane and our excellent Governor's Office legal team, for working tirelessly for weeks now to prepare federal lawsuits in anticipation of this unconstitutional invasion of Illinois by the federal government. Since the beginning of this invasion, families have been snatched up off the streets or removed from their homes, zip-tied and detained for hours, including especially U.S. citizens and legal residents of our state. Peaceful protesters have been hit with tear gas and shot with rubber bullets. Journalists simply reporting the facts on the ground, have been targeted and arrested. U.S. citizens, including children, have been traumatized and detained. Why? To create the pretext for invoking the Insurrection Act so that he can send military troops to our city. He wants to justify and normalize the presence of armed soldiers under his direct command. Donald Trump's deranged depiction of Chicago as a hellhole, a war zone, and the worst and most dangerous city in the world was just complete BS. He clearly has decided to declare war on a great American city that has the lowest homicide rate in 60 years, in a state that has record employment and near record tourism. And he's done it for some unspoken reason.
There isn't an unspoken reason. The reason has been very fucking loud and very fucking proud. Project 2025. And because he thinks he's in charge of everything and that he should be in charge of everything. This administration, I think, has actually said out loud that Americans are ready for a dictator and want a dictator. And that he should be the dictator. So, no, this isn't a surprise, and it isn't unknown either. It is true that Trumpelskin wants to invoke the Insurrection Acts and is trying to normalize military presence in our cities. Those are all true things, but to sit here and say that, oh, we have no reason why, what he's trying to do here, he's been very fucking adamant about that. That's Kyle Clark. He does our local news. Oh, this next guy.
President Trump is threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act and deploy troops on American soil as judges move to block his effort to send the National Guard from red states into blue states against their will. Democratic leaders across the country,
which could be easily construed as instigating a civil war,
are warning that America's headed for martial law. Trump has targeted Denver and Colorado with words, but has not moved to send red state troops here at this point. Democratic Attorney General Phil Weiser called Trump's actions unconstitutional and urged people to use their voices to protect democracy. Trump is falsely claiming that Portland, Oregon, is war-ravaged. One of his own appointees on the federal bench just blocked his plan to call in out-of-state troops to crack down on protests outside an ICE facility in Portland. And today, leaders in Illinois sued to stop Trump from sending troops from Illinois and Texas into Chicago. Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker says Trump is trying to provoke a violent confrontation that would allow him to use the Insurrection Act to bring the military against American citizens. Colorado's Democratic majority at the state capitol passed a law this year trying to keep out-of-state National Guard troops from being sent here against Colorado's will. But the law does allow it if they're acting under federal orders, which has been the situation when Trump has sent or tried to send troops into Washington, D.C.
So Democrats, out of his own words, passed a law, resolution, whatever the fuck he said. I was trying really hard to not get enraged while listening to this. That you can't send National Guard troops to Colorado unless they are ordered by the federal government. When that's the very specific thing that's been happening that has been trying to be prevented from happening. That's the one concession you're going to allow? The one, that's not the word I was looking for. The one, exception, that's the word. That's the one exception to the rule you're going to allow? The very thing that you're supposed to be preventing? And then people wonder why Democrats are hated in this country. You are literally passing laws that ensures fascism can happen so that when the blue guy is in the seat, they can implement fascism, free reign for whatever policies Democrats want, which arguably isn't even that different from what the Republicans are doing. Caveat, that would have been another good word. Thank you. Yeah, let's see if they blow up that judge's house as well. No, they won't, because they made the exception to allow the federal government to order troops into the state from another state. So there's no reason to blow up that judge's house. It was a law. I was there at the Capitol when they fucking passed it. That's nuts. That you were... So when that... I gotta ask you, Steve. When that law passed in the Capitol, did people that were there witnessing it, like, immediately shout in outrage and disgust and have to be forced to be quiet or whatever? Because there is no way I could have been in the Ohio Capitol building where Ohio passed a law saying, oh, we're not going to allow National Guards from other states to come in unless the federal government doesn't, and be quiet. There is no fucking way I would have been able to keep quiet. They would have had to drag me out of there kicking and screaming. Yeah. Fuck Texas. Tell Trump don't mess with Colorado. Abso-fucking-lutely. The judge ruled about Portland, not Colorado. That law was passed in Colorado. Right. And then now there's judges trying to rule broadly that you can't do it regardless from out of state. But states are taking the initiative to say, well, whoa there, Mr. Judge. We're going to allow federal orders to go through. Listen here, buddy. And then when it happens to Colorado, when a National Guard from a red state goes into Colorado, the governor's like, I can't believe this is happening. I could not have foreseen this whatsoever. This is an outrage. And he fucking passed it. I've been going to the Capitol to watch the process for decades. This is one of the handful of times that the gallery erupted in cheers. This is why I stress eat during streams. So that's the problem too. In America, we are dealing with fascism. Naked, unadulterated fascism. And we're not resisting that fascism because A, there isn't a resistance in America, but B, because there are a not insignificant number of Americans who want fascism in America so long as it's their team in charge. That's fucking insane.
If you've been following American politics for a while, you might remember Fox News doing about 1,000 segments on so-called Obama phones for years and years because there was like a subsidy so that people could have phones which are required to participate in our economy and workforce. I have a feeling they're going to be less interested in Trump phones. And the exciting thing about Trump phones is that you already have one. Hundreds of millions of people do. It's just a phone that now is not going to be anywhere near as private as it was because ICE is buying all of this software being paid for by the government that lets them just access your private information across a wide range of incredibly popular apps. And so you're just going to be going about your day on your phone and maybe ICE is listening in. Maybe ICE is reading your messages. And that is brought to you by Donald Trump, mass deportation, and his fabulously well-funded secret police. We're getting this information about...
I'll give this guy credit. I'm subbing to him. He actually called that shit out. He called it the secret police. I haven't heard anybody else call it the secret police.
Some of these recent purchases of apps from the tech news site 404 Media. They got a redacted acquisition document, and it shows ICE entering into a contract to buy all-in-one tools from a company called Penlink that will allow agents to compile, process, and validate billions of daily location signals from hundreds of millions of mobile devices. The document also includes references to payments for services, including face detection, advanced face search, and a dark web data feed. One of the products, Tangles, automatically ingests historical data from multiple communications channels, mobile forensics, internet-based communications, location data, financial records, and web intelligence. And the company that created this platform, they previously had been available on Meta. They were kicked off for allegedly being found using Facebook and WhatsApp accounts to snoop on activists and opposition politicians in Hong Kong and Mexico. So they've already shown themselves perfectly willing to crack down on dissidents in other countries. Now they get to do it here. And the Trump administration has reportedly restarted a $2 million contract with Paragon Solutions, which is a spyware company founded in Israel, whose products have been accused of facilitating the surveillance of journalists and activists. Paragon has advertised their zero-click graphite program that can quietly invade the mobile phone of its target and extract its contents, even from encrypted apps.
Back in April.
Now, that had been shut down under Biden after the DHS had found it had broken a law involving usage of location data. But again, breaking those laws don't matter to Trump, and it's back on the table. And so this is a very wide range of different ways to violate your privacy, to collect information. And it seems likely to be used in connection with these other things we're talking about to crack down on activists and people criticizing Donald Trump. What do you think, Brett?
It's just like...
That was perhaps the most dystopian 2 minutes and 53 seconds out of any video we have ever fucking watched. The sheer amount of violations, illegality, of overreach, and invasion of personality, the funding involved, the green lighting from this administration and ICE with a budget that exceeds the Marine Corps. We are not a free country, and it's good. We've already argued on stream today. We haven't been a free country for a while, but now we're really not a free country. Also, my phone is right here. My ADHD requires me to always be doing something. So even if I'm listening, I have to be doing something, right? So, they're hearing the stream. They're hearing it through my phone. They're hearing it through my microphone, my webcam, whatever, listening devices are in the Oval Office. And we're sitting here bashing the administration, calling for dissent, calling for agitation, calling for unrest, hinting at the use of props. And, any minute now, they could be kicking down this door to the Oval Office, where I'm streaming from live, the Oval Office in Washington, D.C. on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. We are straight up living in an authoritarian dystopian nightmare. I think you misunderstood. We were cheering the fact our state leaders were trying to keep the guard from our states out of ours. I did misunderstand. My bad, Simply Steve. That's so American to start eating after getting stressed by fascism. Yeah, that's why I go to the gym and lift moderately heavy weights. I work out during the stream out of stress. Yeah, imagine if I did one push-up every time something fascist happened. One, I wouldn't be able to do push-ups all stream, but two, I'd probably be Arnold by the end of it. Thank God I never had an X or a TikTok or an Instagram or a Facebook account. Yeah. Well, I got all of them because social media and politics. The kicker of this stupid version of the Patriot Act is that so many who are here are because of the leaders' decisions, and they won't deport these motherfuckers for it. Yeah, we basically have the Patriot Act on steroids now. Anna did get banned from all those platforms. I saw the receipts. Elon Musk himself blocked me and banned me from Twitter. That's fucking hilarious that you got under his skin. So this guy speaking is the only good one of TYT? I don't think he's on TYT, is he? Is the damage report anything to do with the Young Turks? Oh, shit. I didn't know that. All right. denial stage of dystopian, you're just stretching your trigger finger on that prop to focus. Right. It helps relax me. Yeah. Well, I didn't know this guy was on the Young Turks. But so far, I'm a fan. At least for this video. Damn.
We're getting new reports about a chilling and downright shocking escalation of ICE tactics against the residents of Chicago. In the middle of the night,
So,
hundreds of armed federal agents
are we going to
and
hear,
police,
like,
backed up by
somewhere in
riot
this
trucks,
video,
smoke
that
grenades,
phrase
and
being said?
helicopters, breached fences and busted doors in an immigration raid on an entire apartment building on the city's south side.
I just want to point out that a lot of these
breached
guys,
fences and
they're son of a bitch. Can you just stay in a fucking frame for more than 2 seconds?
breached fence.
All right. I just want to point out that a lot of these kits that they're wearing, like that, those are plate carriers. But the likelihood that they are wearing full body armor front and back, and the fact that these helmets are probably maybe only 3A rated, in that they're wearing no leg protection or foot protection whatsoever, is just an interesting fact. Sorry. It's an interesting fact that I would like to point out, that all of these ICE agents that are engaging in all of these raids are wearing regular combat boots and regular pants, and might not be having full plate carriers, full plate in their plate carriers, and their headgear might only be rated to 1 or even 2.
Fences and busted doors in an immigration raid on.
You see how slack those are? Those aren't even, like, you can tell right away because of how they're not dipping and how loose they are. There's no plate carrier on that. And again, there's no body armor on the sides. They're engaging in terrorism and dressing up as soldiers. And they are not as heavily armored as they appear.
On an entire apartment building on the city's south side. They pulled dozens of residents from their homes and zip ties, including children, some of them without any clothes. They then held some outside for hours and dragged the others into rented vans.
It was scary because I've never had a gun put in my face.
Neighbors like Ebony Watson says they ducked for cover as they heard several flashbangs go off.
They was terrified. The kids was crying. People was screaming. They looked very distraught. I was out there.
Notice that this is a black neighborhood. Not even an immigrant community, but a straight up black neighborhood in Chicago that they did all this in. Two years of terror. October 13 is National Jihad Day. All right, I'm gonna try and give you the benefit of the doubt, although I'm not seeing it in your name, buddy. Well, with what he said and his name, I'm fairly certain that was a troll.
When I seen the little girl come around the corner, because they was bringing the kids out too, had them zip tied to each other. One of them literally laughed. He was standing right here. He said, them kids.
They fucking said it.
One of them literally laughed. He was standing right here. He said, them kids.
They zip tied the kids together. ICE put out a statement saying
they zip tied the kids together and said, fuck them kids. Again, I don't know how anybody could witness this, right? This specifically, hear this testimony, see the fact that military is being deployed into our cities and this, that, and the other, and think, you know what? That is making America great again. Because even during the era of slavery and even during Jim Crow, we didn't have the police and the military marching down black neighborhoods, just randomly shaking down communities. Did that shit also happen, though? It did. Obviously, there were police that, Central Park was a black community, completely erased and turned into Central Park. And then Omaha was bombed by police forces. But we all agree after that shit happened, the country was like, no, that's not okay. And we're not going to tolerate this. And now we're seeing it happening day after day after day, week after week after week. Oklahoma. Yeah. Sorry. That's whatever I said, I meant Oklahoma. Or maybe I have too much white privilege and I don't know enough about American history. Maybe this shit has always been going on in black and brown neighborhoods, and I was just never privy to that information. But what I can say is it has never been this overt. It has not been this widely reported until now. And the fact that it has been this widely reported and people are just kind of is very disturbing. Because, again, okay, fine. The tariffs, that wasn't enough to make people march. Supporting Palestine wasn't enough to make people march. The shutting down the government or Doge or the Treasury, that wasn't enough to make people march. Okay. Giving more money to ICE didn't give people the need to march. Cutting $3 trillion in social programs didn't make the country march. Okay, that's scary, but we're at the point where he's trying to implement martial law and have Nazis goose step down our streets and indiscriminately target apartment buildings. How is that still not a red line to be crossed? Where is there a red line for Americans? We thought for a brief second, it would be the Epstein files. And yet, that's barely even making the news anymore. The administration actually survived the Epstein fallout. I mean, it's still happening from time to time, but it's not as aggressive as it was a month ago, a couple weeks ago. Because now we have goose-stepping Nazis in Chicago terrorizing black people and zip-tying children while saying out loud, fuck them kids. And that's still not a red line. So what's the red line? Because as far as the poem goes, first they came for, and then they came for, and when they came for me, I asked for help, but I was alone. We're there, folks. Like, and then they came for me is the next line. We're at the whatever you want to say is the second to last line. We're at that point. They're going after black neighborhoods. They're going after Latino neighborhoods, Asian, Muslim neighborhoods. They're going after democratic cities and democratic states. They're going after our homes, where we work, where we live, where we rest our heads, where we send our kids to school. They're going after American communities right now. The only communities they haven't gone after yet are white communities, predominantly white communities. And when they do, and they will, it will be too late. That is where we are right now. Okay, some positive news.
And new tonight, former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick is taking action in the case of Trey Reed, the student who was found dead hanging from a tree at Delta State University. Today, attorney Ben Crump announced that Kaepernick...
The fact that a black journalist, from Tennessee, from the South, can't say that a black man was lynched when that's clearly what it fucking was. And I mean, I see it in her face. She struggled.
Who was found dead hanging from a tree. Taking action in the case of Trey Reed, the student who was found dead hanging from a tree at Delta State University.
The fact that they keep making black people talk about violent racist crimes against other black people, you may as well make the parents deliver the news with a sanitized reporting vocabulary. I mean, good for Colin, though. Good for Colin. Thank you for stepping up, Colin. I really appreciate that.
Zach Bryan's new song warns about ICE enforcement actions. Grammy-winning country singer Zach Bryan releases a new song criticizing ICE enforcement tactics. Bryan's lyrics warn that ICE agents could forcibly enter homes in their operations. The song clip posted on Instagram sparked backlash from some right-wing fans online. Bryan rose to fame sharing heartfelt songs on social media platforms like Instagram. Follow for more updates on music and social issues.
Well, that was AI sludge.
Country music just got a shot of adrenaline. Zach Bryan's taking on ICE and Trump, and fans can't stop talking. Picture this. Zach Bryan drops a teaser on Insta, right? He's strumming, bold as hell, singing. ICE is gonna come bust down your door. Not your typical country ballad. This one's a middle finger to ICE raids and Trump's policy. Kids are...
Actually, back in the day, that was a typical country ballad. Because back in the day, country was about unions fighting against the government and labor. So, if anything, Zach Bryan is going back to his roots in country and bringing them to the forefront.
We're all scared and all alone, he belts. The middle finger's rising, and it won't stop showing. This guy's not some outsider. 8 years in the Navy, proud to serve. Still loves America. But he's had enough of the fear and the raids. Trump's back in the White House. ICE is ramping up. Even the Super Bowl's on lockdown. Celebs are speaking out, but Bryan, he's turning up the volume for everyone to hear. The best 8 years of my life were spent serving the best country, he says, but he's not letting that stop him from calling out what's wrong. The red...
Oh, that's another fun fact, by the way. The Super Bowl is going to have ICE presence at it and is going to be strictly monitored. The Super Bowl. You know the bread and circuses that you need to have in place so that people will never riot? They are now sending the legions to the circus and controlling the bread at the circus. Like, again, dystopian nightmare level shit. And fine, he's selling... Well, I guess we can wait and see if his house blows up next. Oh, goody. We have...
Immigration raid turned deadly.
We have another person being murdered extrajudicially by ICE. Outstanding.
In a Chicago suburb today, authorities say a man was shot and killed after he tried to drive into agents. CBS News immigration and politics reporter Camila Montoya Galvez has the latest.
An ICE operation turned deadly today here in the Chicago area, the latest epicenter of President Trump's crackdown on illegal immigration. Homeland Security officials say it all started when they attempted to arrest Silverio Villegas Gonzalez, a man they say is here in the U.S. illegally. According to officials, Villegas Gonzalez resisted arrest and attempted to flee, and in the process struck and dragged an ICE officer. The agent then fired his weapon. Officials say the agent and Villegas Gonzalez were taken to a nearby hospital, where Villegas Gonzalez was pronounced dead. According to the Department of Homeland Security, the ICE agent sustained severe injuries, but is now in stable condition. Surveillance video of the vehicle...
Well, that's unfortunate that the ICE agent lived. And I'm not even going to hide that fact. Like, I am disgusted that the ICE agent lived because, again, extrajudicial murder. Allegedly, right? You're going... Where's the warrant, for one? For two, you are already engaging in Chicago against Chicago and Illinois' wishes. right? And now you're murdering people that live in Chicago. Should the person have tried to hit the ICE agent and then flee? No, probably not. But here's the problem. When you create a situation where if you comply, there's still a 50% chance that you will die and that you will still be dehumanized and sent to a detention center and possibly trafficked to another country to go to a death camp to die in inhumane conditions, you are giving people a choice. Flee and hope for the best, or do nothing and probably end up dead anyway. The problem with the way ICE is handling all of this shit, aside from the fact that they shouldn't be handling this shit anyway, is that they are using such amounts of force and psychological warfare that they are causing people to be afraid of even compliance. Which is, of course, the point. That is the design. Hence why what ICE is doing is the actual definition of terrorism. Violent criminal acts committed by individuals or groups to further ideological goals stemming from domestic influences, such as those of a political, religious, social, racial, or environmental nature. So, and maybe we'll do a Wikipedia later on, but what ICE is doing is engaging in terrorism. And it's causing communities in general to react in terror to ICE, which is exactly the design that ICE has created. Which is why I have zero sympathy or empathy for ICE, and why I say unequivocally, unilaterally, when I am president, I am charging every single member of ICE. I don't give a shit if they are just the computer wizard up in wherever, and all they've ever done their entire career is tappity tap tap at a keyboard. They are complicit in executing the orders of this administration to terrorize Latino and Black communities. And they shall be charged accordingly and sentenced accordingly, with every attempt and effort made to seek the death penalty. Fuck ICE. They are so afraid of saying the words. They sure are. MAGA is angry. Which is crazy because MAGA has effectively won everything. They have won the elections. They control all the power in the country, and they are terrorizing all the brown people and sticking it to foreign countries left, right, and center. And the only thing that's happening is our country is crumbling from it. And MAGA's still angry because they're still being told it's not enough. Yeah, violation of Amendment 3, any number of things. Bad Bunny should have him perform with him. Rednecks hated the government and the cops. Yep. There's another video saying that's a lie. ICE was lying. Right. Shocking. I guess we're going to want to cover that one next. While it's fresh, story is collapsing.
Over the weekend, amid the ICE-created melee in Chicago, an immigration agent shot an American woman multiple times following some sort of a traffic incident. Now, that incident escalated protests in the city that has already been rocked by DHS's heavy-handed tactics, including, as we've discussed here, an apartment raid that involved Black Hawk helicopters. Now, the details of exactly what transpired with this woman, whose name is Miramar Martinez, are kind of murky, but what has become quite clear is that the government initially lied about some really key details. And now, her lawyer is claiming that body cam footage undercuts their story entirely. This is raising serious questions about whether armed federal agents just shot an anti-ICE activist and then brazenly lied about it to cover their tracks.
Well, this isn't about the guy who was killed. Apparently, there's yet another shot, though. because ICE is just indiscriminately shooting people now. Yeah, let's...
So let me take you through the timeline of their shifting stories and exactly what the evidence shows. So this incident, it occurred on Saturday morning and involved not only Martinez, but another motorist, Anthony Ruiz, who was not shot, but was arrested. On Saturday evening, DHS spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin put out the following statement with the government's first version of the events that led up to that shooting. Now pay attention to the details here. These are going to matter. McLaughlin wrote, quote, "This morning during routine patrolling in Broadview in the same area."
Well, we're not going to read all that or listen to her read all of it. But basically, this is the story. And then...
Other motorist, Anthony Ruiz's mother, denied the government's version of events. According to the New York Times, Mr. Ruiz's mother, Elizabeth Ruiz, said her son told her on the phone in the morning he had been rammed by federal agents and that they were shooting. Upon hearing that, she said she raced to the scene. She said an agent grabbed her son, said he was under arrest. When she asked why, she said she received no answer. So according to Ruiz and his mother, he just happened to be in the area, was rammed by ICE, and then arrested for no reason. Then, Chicago Police Department said the DHS was also lying about their supposed failure to assist in crowd control. Quote, in a statement, Chicago Police clarified...
Well, we don't need to listen to the nitty-gritty of it, because there's still quite a bit to cover. Suffice to say, the terrorist regime is... attempting to do the goose-stepping thing while lying and trying to cause chaos with the story in hopes that nobody actually follows through or digs into it, which apparently the only people who are doing that are independent media. ICE is shooting people and lying about it. Yes, that is the main takeaway, which is why my administration... One of the first things we're doing on my first 100 days is arresting every single one of these fuckers and ensuring they get Nuremberg-style trials and then, well, get the punishments that they fucking deserve.
You wrote, "I'm 87 years old. I've seen war, repression, protest, and backlash. I've been celebrated and I've been branded an enemy of the state. But I can tell you this is the most frightening moment of my life." That's pretty chilling.
This is a very chilling time. You know, we've faced attempts at autocracy before in the 20s and 30s, and you've cited the example of McCarthyism. There was Jim Crow. This is different, and we should all be very scared, and the key is solidarity. And so that's why I thought to resurrect the spirit of the committee that was started in the 50s and included my father, within the entertainment industry. No president has ever sent troops into the democratic cities across the country saying full force. No president, as far as I know, has tried to control the Federal Reserve.
Well, so not to rain on Jane's parade, Kent State University is where, true, it wasn't the president. I believe it was the governor. Activated the guard to put down the protest, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, I can't think of a president that used the National Guard or the military to put down protests. I do believe, though, that the National Guard was utilized to stop strikes on more than one occasion, especially in the early 1900s. So that's a thing. Obama, did he send the National Guard to DAPL, Standing Rock? Did he send them there? Did he specifically do that? Or was that North Dakota that went along with it? That's a great question. I don't remember. You can look it up real quick if you'd like. However, the other thing is, crap, what was it? Damn it. Sorry. Now I lost.
Central Bank.
Oh, the central bank. Allegedly, JFK was killed because he was going to control the central bank. The the Federal Reserve. Because the speech that he had given right before he got killed, or the days leading up to his death, we're talking about dealing with the Federal Reserve. So, just saying, no president has survived dealing with the Federal Reserve. So that begs the question, is Trump alive still because what he's going to do to the Federal Reserve isn't going to actually harm the bankers, or is it because they don't think he's actually going to be able to do anything?
He is amassing power in a way that will destroy our democracy. And so we're going to stand up. You know, we're creatives, we're storytellers. We can do it creatively. We can have a good time while we do it. But we want to push back, and we want to model what creative, nonviolent, non-cooperation looks like.
This is democracy.
I agree. I mean, I have agreed with Jane. We have said this throughout this stream. We do need to figure out ways to rebuild community, to rebuild those connections, and to stand up and dissent and not be cooperative. And I've listed some of those out. Talking to your neighbors, going to your organizers, working together, working through communication disputes, denying ICE agents anything resembling peace. Do not work with them. Do not allow them any services or access. If you're a cashier and they want to pick up donuts, do not tell them to leave, that you do not serve them. Like, do not let them buy coffee. Do not let them get groceries. Do not let them get gas. None of that. Do not allow them to live peacefully whenever you see them. And yeah, sure, it's a little bit more direct and it's a little bit more likely to get you arrested or harmed, but direct action, right? Blocking their paths, unarresting people that they're targeting in large groups, of course. There's any number of things that you can do that are a lot of what she's saying with the creatives. There was, I forget which country was doing it, but they would dress up as clowns and then stand next to the military forces while in full clown regalia and just mock the military wearing clown regalia. So, like, there's any number of things that we can do to mock this administration and their attempts at authoritarianism. Jane is 100% correct on that. Standing Rock was the governor. So even then, Obama didn't send the guard into an American city. Right. Which I think the southwest border was a border patrol thing, and I think I might not have been aware of that. In 2010, I was just entering into the Air Force, and well, when you're in basic training and tech school, you don't actually have access to the outside world, so I probably didn't hear about it generally, unfortunately. But if I'm not mistaken, since it's the southwest border, that would have been an immigration deployment, but not invading cities like what we're seeing with today. Speaking of dystopian nonsense,
3 ICE letters were huge. The people were scared because they did not know if it's a real ICE or not.
But it was all fake. Those ICE letters, that's stickers. And the guy who did this did it as a social media stunt.
It was literally a prank. It's literally a prank video.
What's up, guys? Today we're going to be going around today and delivering ice to everyone and seeing their reactions.
When you found out,
I hope he gets his legs broken. I hope this guy gets his legs broken, his tires slashed. I hope his house has every single window broken. I hope he gets doxxed so fucking hard that he has to flee the country. Because how fucking stupid, evil, and malicious do you have to be to do that prank now in a Latino community? What a fucking clown. That was Hanoi Jane. Yeah, that's not a prank. That is That is actually stochastic terrorism. No. No, hold on. No, damn it. Well, it wasn't a deliberate act, but there's a form of terrorism, like, so stochastic terrorism is where you incite the populace to do something, right? You don't order them, you don't actually tell them to do that, but somebody acts on the words that you say, right? There's one like this where even the perceived act of what you have done, although intended to not be an act of terror, did instill terror in a community and therefore would still be chargeable for an act of terrorism. Now, I think because of the nature of this country right now, it might be disturbing the peace at worst, or since he made it onto CNN, nothing's going to happen to the fucking clown because he's a white prick. But I promise you, if a black person had done it, that guy would have been charged with everything under the sun and we'd know exactly what it was called. Unfucking believable. What's this dude's name? Oh, they're not going to put his name on there.
The guy who did this did it as a social media stunt.
It was literally a prank. It's literally a prank video.
What's up, guys? Today we're going to be going around today and delivering ice to everyone.
So they're not going to say his name at all. Yeah. Yeah, I wonder why. They're going to protect this lily white boy who got away with terrorizing an entire Latino community. No, I think he meant... I mean, I agree with you. You don't do that to be funny, haha. Like, what would have been funny, haha, although admittedly racist, is if he put a sombrero on the side and handed out tacos or something, and, put something else on the side of a van that looked like that. I don't know what it would have been, but it still would have been racist at the end of the day. But this, the actual department logo, and then bold letters ICE on this kind of a vehicle, absolutely fucking not.
In Trump's second term. That's more than the last 6.
Right. So, I mean, and then they have to cover the fact that, this was at the very least a very out of taste, distasteful. Yeah, no, and that's what I'm saying. I hope karma gets him hard. Pretty fucking hard, yes. What do we got here?
Illinois and the city of Chicago are filing a lawsuit against the Trump administration over deployments of National Guard troops. Joining us now to comment, White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, Stephen Miller. My question was whether the administration...
He's the Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy? So he's the guy for policy. He literally is the guy for policy. So all of the racist, fascist shit that is happening is literally coming out of this bald-headed motherfucker's mouth. Look at him. He just looks like an evil... Like, honestly, I don't think DC or Marvel Comics could create a villain that looks as villainous as him without the audience being like, come on. He's very clearly the evil, Nazi-coded villain to the supervillain. Like, there's no fucking way. He pushes back against Miller until Miller literally crashes out and stops talking.
Still plans
Good, let's
to
watch that for a
abide
little while.
by that judge's order restricting any National Guard troops from being sent to Oregon.
Well, the administration will abide by the ruling insofar as it affects the covered parties. But there are also many other options the president has to deploy federal resources and assets under the U.S. military to Portland.
He really doesn't. I'm going to stop you right there, Steve. He does not have any authority to send the military anywhere under any of the circumstances that you are about to try and justify. The Insurrection Act is an extremely, extremely fragile excuse. And even then, it still would violate the Posse Comitatus Act. So, you know what? Insurrection Act. We keep talking about it. There it is on Wikipedia. Wikipedia. The Insurrection of 1807 is the U.S. federal law that empowers the President of the United States to nationally deploy the U.S. military and to federalize the guard of individual states in specific circumstances, such as the suppression of civil disorder, of insurrection, and of armed rebellion against the federal government of the United States. It provides a statutory exception to the Posse Comitatus. Oh, great. So there's an exception to that act. Wonderful. That limits the president's deploying the U.S. military to enforce either civil law or criminal law within the United States. After invoking and before exercising, requires the publication of a presidential proclamation whereby the U.S. president formally orders the dispersion of the peoples committing civil unrest or armed rebellion. The Defense Department guidelines define Homeland Defense as a constitutional exception to the restrictions. Therefore, the political, military, and police measures necessary to protect are exceptions. Okay, so that's Homeland Defense. That's the exception to the Comitatus Act. Great. All right, so that's that. So the United States of America fought the Revolutionary War in 1776. I think I know that's our birthday, but when did the U.S. officially begin as a nation? Maybe it is still 1776. I thought it was like 1780 something. Okay, so 1784 is the day the United States became a sovereign nation. 23 years later, after fighting a Revolutionary War, of providing the First Amendment and the Second Amendment and the Ninth Amendment and the 10th Amendment, 23 years later, we're passing the Insurrection Act, giving the president power to deploy the military against civilians who engage in armed rebellion, the thing that they just did 23 years ago against England. In case you were wondering if we were ever free.
But I was making the point that under federal law, Section Title 10 of the U.S. Code, the president has the authority anytime he believes federal resources are insufficient to federalize.
That's not at all. Like, that's literally right there. It is under Title 10, but it literally requires... Where's the thing? He has to do this part first. So anyway, in case there's any, again, the lies. The sheer amount of lies coming out of this fucking guy's mouth.
The National Guard to carry out a mission necessary for public safety. So it's important to understand that in Portland, ICE officers have been subjected to over 100 nights of terrorist assault, doxing, murder threats, violent attack, and every other means imaginable.
Terrorist assault against ICE agents. The same agents who have been, without a warrant, unilaterally and arbitrarily picking up, kidnapping, and trafficking Latino people, and have just recently terrorized a black apartment building community in Chicago, zip-tying children in the streets in the dead of night and saying, fuck them kids. Yeah.
To try to overturn the results of the last election through violence. The most important point I want to make today is that the number 1 and 2 items in the GOP platform in 2024
Thanks for the follow, Jacob.
were to turn back the border invasion and carry out the largest deportation program in American history.
Which is not legal.
Inauguration Day, there's been an orchestrated campaign of terrorism and violence against ICE officers. Of course, we saw the recent sniper attack against ICE officers. They're publishing their families' photos online. They're threatening.
What sniper attack against ICE officers? Was Charlie Kirk an ICE officer? Is that what he's trying to say? And yes, free Palestine. I did want to cover a little bit of Palestine today, even though it's not Foreign Affairs Wednesday. But just to be clear, today marks 2 solid years of active genocide that America has been aiding, abetting, and funding through Israel. And it is still ongoing. Listening to him speak, though, he keeps using the word terrorism. He keeps using all these buzzwords that are trying to normalize the aggression and the counter-aggression that this administration is enforcing upon people. Which is Propaganda 101. That's straight out of Goebbels' playbook. And honestly, the longer I look at his face, the angrier I'm getting. So,
Jack Daniels.
I'll just leave it at this. Stephen Miller will face capital punishment during my administration. And I assume that ballroom will be finished being built by the time January 21st, 2029 rolls around. And I think that is going to be where all of the capital punishments will be carried out. That ballroom will be put to use, folks. If our tax dollars are going to pay for it, well, by golly, we're going to make sure it's used. So, this is less dystopian, but just petty capitalism.
Yes, the popular Tennessee whiskey company is getting a lot of attention recently, but not for their whiskey. They're severing a long-standing friendship and relationship that they've had with farmers in the area, and it's all about slop. Now, slop is a corn byproduct made in the process of making whiskey, and farmers would gladly go take it off Jack Daniels' hands for zero to low cost so they could feed their livestock. It was a mutually beneficial relationship. But now Jack Daniels is going in a different direction. They're taking that slop and giving it to a nearby energy company to use for green energy. Farmers, though, tell me it's really leaving them out in the cold, and they just want someone to hear them because other options to feed their livestock are much more expensive. For decades, they have been getting this slop and gladly going to pick it up off of.
What is a green energy company going to do with slop? Also, if we stop producing food, we are all going to starve and then die. Capitalism is literally killing us for profit. It is literally killing themselves for profit. Which is, again, why Ronanist economic policies and leadership policies are going to ensure that capitalism can never rear its misguided head in this country ever again, because we are literally killing ourselves so that some company, which, by the way, Jack Daniels, you want to know how Jack Daniels got its start? I think he was a slave, no less, not even a freed slave, an actual slave, came up with the distillery process for Jack Daniels, and Jack Daniels, who owned both the distillery plant, whatever, and the slave, took credit for the slave's work, which I don't remember his name because I don't really think that was ever really expressed. Who was the slave responsible for? Nathan Green. Perfect. So, Nathan Green created Jack Daniels, but Jack Daniel took it from Nathan Green because he was an actual slave. And that gentleman right there. That's that an enslaved man who taught Jack Daniel the art of whiskey distillation. What's even happening with the National Guard? Well, a lot of things. One, they're being used as pawns. Two, the National Guardsmen are obeying those orders unlawfully. And C, The only thing that can be done, apparently, in this country is judges ruling against it and this administration ignoring it and bypassing them in some other way, forcing the game to move and move and move a different direction. Instead of arresting this administration and Stephen Miller and everybody else involved and charging them themselves with insurrection or crimes against democracy. Why is he deploying them, though? Because he wants to be a dictator. America is so messed up at the moment. Yes, it is. And it's also extremely stressful to live here. Which is why I stress eat and drink and need to drink honey because my throat keeps getting sore from all this nonsense.
CNN has learned that the Trump administration is claiming the power to designate drug traffickers as...
That's not what I thought this was. I thought this was highlighting the fact that the people that were killed in Venezuela in those boats were actually fishermen and not, in fact, cartels. And so now, apparently, the U.S. Department of Justice is apparently sharing a memo giving carte blanche to this ass clown to kill innocent people wherever they fucking please.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement targeted a mountain Mexican restaurant in what it calls a criminal investigation.
And their actions today had a lot of people talking in Frisco. The operation happened at Hacienda Real in Frisco, which is just off of I-70 near Dillon Reservoir. Your reporter in the mountain, Spencer Wilson, joining us live. And this is one of 2 locations that the feds were at today, Spencer.
So, ICE is loudly in Chicago and Portland and Los Angeles and New York, but they are quietly going everywhere in the country and targeting Latin communities.
Kelly, the other location we were able to confirm with the Summit County Sheriff's Office was over in a Dillon residential neighborhood.
Are you guys okay? No. I am not okay. Whenever I stream, my pulse and blood pressure go through the roof. I'm probably going to have an aneurysm or a heart attack one of these days on stream. But this is the price we have to pay, that I am choosing to pay, to try and fight back against this dystopian nightmare. We're going to be running for Congress. And then once we win our primary, we are going to win the general. And once we make it into Congress, we're going to keep streaming as often as we can, highlighting the absolute tomfoolery that is going on in this country, but also having the gravitas to be able to go on news networks and the mainstream media and also highlight the tomfoolery that is happening in this country. So these streams, living here right now, feeling as powerless as what we do, as I do at the very least, it's not, I don't want to say penance, but it is a necessary pain that I have to endure, that we have to endure on the journey towards being able to actually physically doing something about it. Yeah, well, so the problem about what you just said, Jacob, is that that won't stop this administration because they're targeting Latinos generally. They're not just going after immigrants anymore, they're going after everybody. Secondly, banning guns is probably around the corner, and it's starting with the transgender community. And even though we have the right to bear arms, apparently, if we use those arms against the government, it would be all the excuse they need to invoke the Insurrection Act, which is crazy, considering we have the right to rebel against our country. But neither here nor there. So that is, you're basically suggesting, why don't we just lay down and die and hope for the best, like Palestinians have been doing for the past 2 years? Because Palestinians don't have guns, and they are on their own land being treated as if they're illegal occupants. And Israel is just choosing to murder them. And they have been for 80 years, but for the past 2, they've been deliberate about it. So no. Disarming yourself and trying to comply with the fascism is welcoming death and oppression. And by the way, being an illegal immigrant in the United States of America isn't even a felony. It's a misdemeanor. And it's the lowest misdemeanor, equivalent to like running a stop sign or hitting a stop sign or something like that. It's literally a non-issue. And it's not even a criminal crime. It's a civil crime. So being here illegally is not a major felony violation of law. It is a civil violation that is treated as a misdemeanor. A minor misdemeanor is a traffic ticket. A misdemeanor, I think, is like an excessive speeding ticket or something like that. And that's all illegal immigration is, a misdemeanor. Right, they don't identify themselves, and they are arbitrarily pulling people over that are just brown. And in Anna's case, she's lucky that they didn't detain her anyway, because they have. We have covered that many times on stream, where they will just detain anybody who's brown to hell with the consequences and let them languish for days or weeks. I think in one case, it was for months as well. So, no. There is going to be no compliance with ICE or this administration because, as I have said in previous streams, I am disavowing the Trump administration. I am declaring this administration unlawful, and for the international community to disavow the Trump administration as well, and to declare my administration as the only lawful administration. Interestingly enough, Gavin Newsom did the same thing. So I'm happy to primary him for it. I don't give a shit. But there has been calls to disavow this administration by elected leadership. But we are getting close to the end, so no need to really cover the rest of that video per se. We did cover most of what we wanted to cover. Some of it is economic, like the dot-com bubble, or discourse about what the shutdown does and how Democrats are reacting to it, but that's not that important. And I think that's so hilarious that I can just get in front of Anyway, Trump stole the 2020 election with the help of Elon Musk. He is not my president. No, and there's growing evidence to suggest that that is in fact true. There have been doctoral studies that prove statistical anomalies. And then Musk and Trump both were bragging about Musk's involvement with the voting machines anyway. Well, it could be that he stole 2020 as well. Like, that's also within the realm of possibility. But less overt. In either case, that's the stream, folks. Thank you for joining us. I know some of you just joined now at the tail end. We stream 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday through Thursday. Tuesdays, we cover U.S. politics. Wednesdays, we cover world politics. And on Thursdays, we recap anything that we may have missed or anything that may have occurred differently. Oh, that's what I keep doing there. So, with that being said, wow, sorry. Brain is just not braining right now. We're wrapping up. I hope to see you all tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern, where we'll cover foreign affairs. I'm sure we're going to cover a lot about Palestine and the fact that it's been a 2-year anniversary of genocide and the most preventable genocide in all of history. With all that being said, I hope you guys can manage to have a good rest of your evening. President Samuel Ronan, out.